Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Altered Weekly Online League AWOL Season 2, Monday Weekly, number 10 at this point. We are getting into the game here shortly. We have about 5 minutes till start. A little over 100 players, as we were looking at earlier. But anyway, let me introduce myself. I am Blue, and today will be joining me Runefolk once again. Say hi.
Hello, hello. Yeah, I'm Runefolk. I'm here again. I think the third week for me, but by now in a row. And yeah, always glad to be here.
Yeah, when Pandy can't show up, I'll do the stream, and it's usually with Runefolk as far as the people that are available on Mondays. Which it sucks because I'm taking away him from the actual tournament, but it's okay. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
We can throw him into some other times at a certain point. It's got the AQZ stuff too at some and all that kind of thing and all the good stuff. But either way, we're going into this tournament today, week 10, like I mentioned, for the EU time slot. We have a lot of the same names that we're used to seeing, a lot of altered aces, a lot of different teams as a whole. Anything in particular you're looking forward to seeing this week around?
I haven't looked too much into who's joined. Um, uh, I'm always looking for new names, but I haven't found a lot of new names. Maybe one of the names I've recently seen a lot more often on the ladder is ATP Rico Fenwick. That's just a name that stuck around for me the last few weeks, and I haven't seen them too much on stream for what I can remember. But yeah, otherwise it's just great to see so many players just return every week, and yeah.
Just going for it in general, and give me a second, good folks, as I try to tweet out or posts rather on the Discord of what we got going here. But yeah, it should be a good tournament overall. Hope to see who is ending up to take it. Of course, we got the usual Afanis and Sigismar players that we're likely to see. But I know last Wednesday when I was casting, the we got to see a good amount of Akesha as well from folks trying to play something different and not necessarily your hostage Akesha type, but some other
Sadly.
types of different Akesha that probably just focus a little bit more on Moth than anything else. Any particular type of decks you think you might want to see this time around?
Um, actually, I have seen the first other player that is playing Varu in a similar build to me. I would love to see them show up, but I haven't seen their name on the list, so I'm expecting no Varus. But other than that, the second hero I'm usually looking forward to is Basira, and I've cooked up a build for Basira that I kind of enjoyed. You might have seen that on last Wednesday's AWOL stream.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that's the coolest. But I also don't expect too many people to see to be on Basira. But yeah, there's still some other people that once in a while run Basira, so that's still cool to look out for.
Yeah, I actually just recently tried to throw a Basira list together for my locals as a whole. Haven't always been a big fan Basira, but it's fun to mix it up a little bit. I feel like out of all the factions, I like playing all three of them in Bravos the most. As far as what's available, I feel like that faction for a lot of other folks is probably Ysmir because everyone likes playing Faunus, Lindaway, and I think Akesha's in fun as a whole. But yeah, for me, it's been Bravos as of late. But we are currently only 1 minute away from the start of the AOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 10. Want to thank everyone that has joined in with us earlier and saying hi to everyone except for Kohlrabi in the chat. And we are currently at how many total? 111 players. So getting
Oh,
up there a little bit. We did just hit the time to give us a start, so we will be locked at 111, I believe, and we will see what we're going to get here as far as matchups. And they did go through, so BGA didn't fail on us yet, so that's good to see. and
Yeah.
we'll go ahead and pick what we want to take a look at here. Different folks that we have lining up here. Is there any particular matchup you want to take a look at before we just pick one at random?
Um, no, I'm fine to take some random matchups for the first rounds.
All right, let's see. Random matchup. Here we go. Here we go. Hmm, let's do. All right, scroll, 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 scroll. 39.
Okay.
Uh oh. So, all right. Oh, having trouble here.
So Gloops against Tats Not Me, both from France.
Let's see if I can get in. Having trouble
I
loading.
definitely know both of these players' name, but I don't have any decks related to these names. So
Well, we'll see what they're gonna do here shortly after we wait for
yeah,
the art to load.
yeah. Just based on the meta, I'm expecting Sigismund, Afanas, Fen, and probably Tasia, or
Yeah,
also Lindaway. I think these are still probably the most played heroes. But
we do.
I actually have made a kind of summary on the play rates and finish rates for some of the heroes based on the 39 card entries.
Nice. We do have a Sierra being played against the Sigismar. We'll have Tats Not Me on the Sierra and Gloops on the Sigismar. So we'll have to see how that turns out. I have been enjoying Sierra and the folks that have been adding the tree to their list, and I always love a good rare hooked being played, getting a draw and a free one for one. Who says that you need
Yeah,
a to you'll get a free advance off of a Baba Yaga on both sides if you can just use a hooked, right?
yeah, and I really like the usage of hooked in these Sierra lists. If you're even or also if you're ahead, this card is super nice. But as soon as you're behind, this card oftentimes feels like it's much worse than when you're actually trying to trade with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely still a nice card, especially in the early game. Just getting draws and cycling your deck and managing to trade one for one. That's just amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I think I had a game recently where I felt like I got hooked at least 20 times, even though it's not actually possible. But still ended up winning. But at the same time, it was definitely one of those annoying things where like they moved over several characters to one side just to get the one for one, and when I thought I would do well. But yeah, going onto the game here, getting that day 2 withered tree out always feels pretty good as a Sierra, getting it set up early, getting a bug, getting a moth, and why not exhausting things? And this time around, they actually exhausted their own foundry mechanic in order to, get the 2 tokens.
Yeah, I was also surprised for a second, but yeah, it doesn't really matter what they exhaust, so
Yeah.
they can also just exhaust something from themselves. But interestingly enough, we see a kind of new or different Sigisma list than we're used to, with that Baba's Isba being played on day 2 for the Sigisma here, and that's getting pretty hard punished by that Sierra just taking the double advance here with that Nylon. But
Yep.
yeah, it's a good setup for the Sierra here now, and I'm really interested to see what the Sigma is doing with the Ispa. I'm probably expecting Moth Lanterns here as well. Otherwise, I don't feel like this Ispa has a lot of value, but maybe it's just useful as an after use as well.
Yeah, I remember once upon a time I was trying to find different permanents for Ortis that worked with uniques that I need like landmark requirements for. And I I think I even tried Isba at one point just because, but it doesn't really feel good to use the rare slot for that. But yeah, I'd have to agree with you. We're more than likely looking at potentially some Moth Lanterns or the other sacrifice effects that get pulled over to Ortis, usually from Ysmir, to see what they can pull together. And Sigismar, if you're going to try that type of Sigismar list, it's usually the best Ortis hero to do it with. I know I've tried to mess with it on Gold Ring, but it doesn't always work the best, especially if you get behind by 6 spots on the Tumult and you already lose by the time you are making any headway, kind of thing. So we'll see how that turns out. We do have a common field reinforcements being played. in order to get a token out there and get some draw going. But we get some more draw going just because of a hooked. So 2
Yeah.
mana left for the Sierra, 3 for the Sigismar. Let's see what we got going.
Just after healing for now, and now this might be a good spot for the Sigisma getting back or already being up in card advantage. But I've already looked at the uniques for the Sierra here. The Sigisma, sadly, last game wasn't on Sigisma, so I can't really take a look at that, even though this is a bit more interesting to me. But this Sierra is definitely on a Brassback Hive configuration. And interestingly enough, there are 3 copies of the rare Foundry Bastion. So for anyone that doesn't know what the card is doing, because it's so rarely played, it's usually the 3 mana card that's allowing you to play from reserve effects um, from your hand as well. And the rare upgrade is it costs an additional mana, but you're getting a on-play draw. So this synergizes quite well with cards that use your abilities from a permanent, like the common Gibble is really nice with this. I've tried to make something work with this as well, but it didn't really feel good to me. So I also think it's probably best together with the Brassback Hive, and that we do see in this list. And also for the rares that for the uniques that are pretty much just Athenas that are creating Brassbucks and are losing fleeting.
Yeah.
So that's also quite nice.
Yeah, the Foundry, as far as that Bastion there is interesting because typically we had been seeing that a lot in season one from the Kojo lists once upon a time, right? I think we still have one or two people that are still making it work.
Yeah,
Last time, I think it was Adon that had the that fun Foundry list that we even casted, right, with those Retataskers.
yeah,
So,
thanks for it.
yeah, it's interesting to see it actually in Axiom potentially. um,
Yeah.
but fun thing about that last turn, we actually just saw a 1 for 0 from the Sierra just by playing that, Foundry Engineer that we also don't see very often, and the Sigismar just playing another Baba Zizba for setup, so they are currently behind 3 spots on the Tumult here. I'm not sure how that's gonna work. They do have a lot of cards in hand, so they definitely could come back, but at a certain point, you gotta hope that, you don't really let the Sierra get too far ahead. At this point, we are going to see mechanical training getting played to not hit
You
anything because,
basically yeah,
yeah,
do nothing.
yeah, I guess it's an after you in a way. But yeah, we'll see Gift of Self from the Sigismar. I used to like when the game first came out. I was trying to put the Gift of Self in my Sigismar list just because I wanted more draw kind of thing. It didn't fit as well because especially it just was better to use the Ozmas back before when they were still drawing, but, now I can see it if you're using the sacrifice mechanic and everything, but, we'll see how this goes here. I think
Yeah, and
Sierra.
uh, and I feel like a bit the Sigisma has misunderstood the game plan for the game. It's not to draw your entire deck. It's you actually have to win on the tumult, not draw your deck. But yeah, this definitely looks like an interesting Sigisma list. But so far not too aggressive, and that might be a list that players might enjoy to play against. Since yeah, these hyper aggressive Sigisma lists they are a pain to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. And it is cool getting to see cards like the Three Little Pigs. Used to not be super popular, but I feel like nowadays with certain axiom based lists where you are playing a bunch of landmarks, it is definitely doable and gives you a nice little stat stick there out on the board when you can play it, and now we'll finally get to see that mechanical training actually be used to do something, and it will be used to exhaust and get the moth out from the Nilum withered tree. At this point, I didn't think I'd be saying this. It feels like the Sierra is outpacing the Sigismar as far as aggressiveness.
Yeah.
Would not have thought that going into this game, but yeah, you never know, I guess, when it comes to certain deck lists.
Yeah, and unfortunately for the Sierra here, they still haven't found their brass archive, but currently it's looking quite well for them either way. And another unique that is reliant on sabotaging. And I feel like, is there any payoff for Sigisma to sabotage other than Mouth the Lantern? Or
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what if there is a lot of payoff here, but it is a fun unique at the very least as far as being able to sacrifice. I'm trying to think like is maybe they have another unique that is benefiting off of the sacrifice other than something like Moth Lantern, like you mentioned, but I don't know without seeing the full deck list, right? We could
yeah.
only speculate, and we will see that rare hook come out again. A lot of spells for the Sierra and not so many characters just to move over that moth and try to get a single advance and not allow the Sigismar to stop them here. Which, I mean, going adjacent and just needing one more advance for the rest of the game is gonna feel pretty good for Sierra, especially if they can run into that brass bug hive that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and we do see a removal here for the Sigisma to get the 1-0 this day and get somewhat back on the tumult, still being 2 expeditions behind. But maybe with the card advantage, they got through all of these Espas and Gift of Selves.
Yeah.
Maybe they can find a way back into this.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a possibility. They were able to hold off the Sierra from getting too close. At this point, if at least there's a space in between the hero and the companion tokens, I feel okay. Especially when it's in Axiom and not something like Ysmir, where I have to worry about it actually just being one space. So
Yeah.
having card advantage and being able to sabotage and do different things here definitely could help out for the Sigismar. And after all the shit we've been talking, they may end up just taking this game if Sierra can't pull something together here.
And there finally is the Brass Archive, and this might probably just be a 1 for 1.
Yeah.
But yeah, if there's removal now for this Sigismund, they might still find a 2 for 1 this day. But with that attorney, it might seem like they just want to take the draw and a setup for the next turn. But of course, they could still just play this out a bit more.
Yeah, going back to the original strategy that you mentioned earlier of just drawing your entire deck at this point, um, opposed
Yeah.
to advancing. So they will have to stop both expeditions on the following day here from the Sierra, which is probably not going to be the most ideal situation, especially with having that brass bug hive out, even though they are only drawing into 3 cards in hand at this point. It is still fairly high in mana for both players. So I'm sure the Sigismar might be able to deal with some of those brass bugs, but they still have to get characters out themselves, it seems like, at some point, and they can't sacrifice them all, even though they have a lot of options to do so. But we'll see if they can pull it out. Even with a double advance, we'd still be going on to another day. But it's definitely looking like it could be in the Sierra's favor, but they are going first. So we'll see both cards most likely before we see whatever the Sigismar has left to play.
And probably the best card here for the Sierra might be just that mechanical training, get as many slow plays and as many brass bucks as possible. And with the three three little picks, it's they're already putting out a bunch of stats, but that might not necessarily be enough this turn.
And we do have a Ordis Trooper out, and it is one of those that requires a landmark. So maybe that's the only reason we're seeing the Babas Isbas or this type of list in order to be a token generator for those landmarks. But yeah, we do see that second brass bug hive come out for the Sierra, and that's going to be a lot of bugs to be able to remove at this point.
Yeah, definitely. And I think this might just be impossible. There has to be two removal spells by now, and both have to be teamwork training. I feel like, or is there any other way?
Yeah, I mean, technically they are running sacrifice, so I guess they could have had like a Anubis or something that would have removed a good amount of stats, but that does not look like that's a situation. They do have enough for a teamwork training that will help them here if they have it, but not enough to stop both sides. We will see the
This
Overseer.
actually still got kind of close, but yeah,
Yeah,
sadly, two stat points still missing, and
yeah.
the Sierra's taking this.
Yeah, just too much to overcome from the beginning, from the Sigismar, gave up too much too early. A little bit reminiscent of a Goal Ring play where even if you get to that 8 mana, you feel like you're behind a little bit too much sometimes. But we will say Tats take the game there on the Sierra. Always good to see them play good Sierra gameplay work out. And yeah, the Sigismar list was definitely strange as far as what Jan's saying in the chat. um, the Sierra list is probably more typical for a Sierra list these days. They may have had some cards that are not exactly the same, but stuff like Hooked, Avalanche is, although not used all the time, I don't think it's a bad card. And then Nilum Withered Tree and Brassbug Hives are pretty popular, so can't blame them too much there. Would have been cool to see what that Sigismar was potentially try to have come together there, but not that time around. Maybe we'll figure it out at another point, or once we're able to see their full deck list. But on to some more games here. We are watching the AWOL Season 2, Monday Weekly number 10. Thanks to everyone that has joined us thus far. Do you want to pick a table here now that I'm done talking?
I'm looking at table 2 right now, Flyvern against Sawaki.
Okay.
And Sawaki is a name I remember from early on, I believe, from the game. And it's always it's cool to see them show up to these tournaments for me.
Definitely. So we do have an Akesha, which I mentioned before. We saw last Wednesday, and a Kojo being played here. Always fun to see what people can come together with as far as Akesha is concerned, and I feel like Kojo has been a solid deck list in this season two meta thus far, and it looks like it's one of those typical ones of a lot of low cost cards and just trying to get them as much out of it as possible.
This board state right now is very interesting. We see 4 characters on the board, but nothing threatens to advance here at all. And that's quite funny.
Yeah, should be fun to see what's gonna go here. It is the first turn for the Kojo, which means we probably saw the Buddha get hit by that off you go that we saw in the reserve. And instead of playing that tiny Jin from the reserve, we will see a Bravos Tracer in the it's is that the that's the it's saying that it's the regular version, but that's actually the Kickstarter version, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's these cards on
Yeah.
BGA aren't actually card images. It's
Yeah.
all put together. It's they have like the artwork, and then all on top is just basically put together, and they don't use that entire card image. It's
Yeah.
yeah, I've looked into that a bit.
Yeah. So we do see a unique Flamel come out that will return that off you go to hand for the Akesha. And you may put a card from your hand in reserve. If you do, you may return a card from your reserve to your hand. Doesn't look like they needed to use that second effect. So yeah, that's something that the Kojo will definitely have to be aware of as far as that off you go still being in the Akesha's hand. Especially with them being one away, the Akesha decides not to mana, which means we may be seeing a small step giant leap here being played immediately. We don't, and
Yeah,
we
and
will.
instead we see that cadets just returning the flamel instantly, and now that off you go could be played twice this turn. But that's still a lot of commitment for mana and not too many stats you're putting out. So I wouldn't necessarily expect that to be the play this turn. But yeah, it's 4 cards in hand. Still a bunch of choices for this Kesha here.
We do know what two of them are, but we will see that after you being played by the Kesha, kind of forcing this Kojo to decide what they want to do and play some cards. I thought we might see that Isin Boshi come out to try to equally slow play things, but they instead try to throw out their unique Bravos Trailblazer, which is from anywhere if you control a fleeting character, draw a card. And it also has a reserve effect of you can gain one boost per fleeting character. So we will see that Off You Go being played on the Tiny Gen, and we'll have to see if we see that Flamel and potentially Off You Go play, because I believe the Flamel was a 3 costs.
Yeah, exactly. And this Trailblazer here is quite decent. Sadly, the stats right now are quite good, but yeah, sadly that Lamel into Off You Go just threatens to take that side as well, and currently nothing is really looking to be able to block this Akasha here on both expeditions. So this might be a tough turn depending on what the cards for the Kojo are here.
Yeah. So depending what the Kojo has, they're gonna have to be aware that they're probably gonna see another off you go here. I don't know if they have anything that's gonna be able to deal with both sides at this point, because it definitely looks like the Trailblazer will be the target of that off you go. But we'll have to see what they still have left in hand. I don't can't think of anything at the moment that's going to be able to block both sides out, and they do have some slow plays, so we will see the rabbit come out and boost up the Isenboshi, so that's enough to block on that side if we see the off you
Yeah,
go on the hero side.
yeah, and the good thing for the Kojo right here is the supportability of the Trailblazer. So in theory, if they have a 3 cost in hand that could block this Flamel, that could just be played out as well. Otherwise, as 2 costs, I think probably only Mana Eruption and
Tracer,
Intimidation are dealing, or Tracers as well are dealing with this Flamel here.
yeah.
And yeah,
Yep. The good news for a Bravos hero is there are a lot of things that are good at 2 costs, assuming that, they are not gonna use that Trailblazer effect. It looks like the Akesha's trying to decide if it is worth it to use that off you go at this moment. I feel like you kinda just have to use it and force the Kojo to make the play, with only 2 cards in hand, but you're not gonna lose this turn, but we'll have to see what they decide to do. They are gonna play the off you go. It will hit the Trailblazer. Now we'll have to see if that support ability gets used or it's just a straight 2 cost that we see come from the hand of the Kojo.
yeah.
Big
Other than
decision
that,
here.
I think that yeah, I think that there's not much else to do here
Yeah.
other than these 3 cards, as I mentioned, and I don't know if there's any 3 cost that actually has 3 forest for Bravos.
Yeah, it would be purely they could have a Serenger, at 2 costs here, but that won't let them advance. It'll block, and we will
Oh,
just see the Serenger, yeah. So that should be enough, and it actually is a pretty good setup for the Kojo and getting that Serenger to reserve and be able to utilize that on the following turn to help block that Akesha. So things are not quite done. I think, the Akesha
yeah.
played the best land that they had, but just enough low cost stuff for that Kojo in order to keep things close and keep them in the game.
Yeah, definitely. And now also going into a Buddha turn for this Kojo, this could be the game-ending turn. There is, of course, still small step potential for the Akasha if they draw into it. Other than that, I don't feel like it's too likely to see this game go to tiebreaker here. But yeah, it might still just happen.
Definitely a possibility. There's a lot of cards within the Bravos setup that are low in stats in other areas and high in some areas. So if these terrains line up just right, we may see a 2 for 1, for example. But yeah, more than likely, I'd have to admit that we're either going to see potentially a small step, or we may just see the Kojo take it on a 2-0, and or the Akesha be able to remove enough of the Bravos characters in order to take the game themselves. So we'll have to see how it turns out. A lot of cards available at this point. We will see that 2 cost mail come from the reserve. Doesn't do anything special, but that Trailblazer got a nice boost from having a fleeting character being itself.
Yeah, and that card is nicely synergizing with itself from when played from reserve. And I kind of like the that it just always draws. It seems very consistent, but yeah, for me, on draw uniques, you're still probably looking on lower cost cards rather than these 3/3 cost, 'cause in the late game, yeah, you oftentimes have enough mana, but still just playing low cost is oftentimes just much better, sadly.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can get a lower cost draw, it's probably ideal. 3 cost ones aren't the worst, especially if it has a secondary effect. This time it's only coming from reserve, but at least it's something. It's one of those things where if you can, have a card that is good enough, it doesn't, shouldn't matter too much, especially in Bravos, I think. There are a lot of good uniques, but I feel like they're not as dependent as some other factions or unique setups. So, we'll have to see. I mean, I haven't been playing the new unique championship, so, I feel like I have seen, a good amount of Bravos decks do well there in general, so,
Yeah. And no unique Bravos is definitely doing quite well.
yeah.
And that sabotage last round from the Kojo came in a very good moment to see afterwards the sleight of hand just as a passing play. Otherwise, the Akasha would have gotten that card back into their hand, and
Mhm.
that was quite a nice play.
Yeah, good timing on that. Makes me wonder, do you think that they prioritize the idea of getting that Flamel out opposed to getting that, Off You Go returned as far as worrying about sabotage at that point?
Probably when you're seeing your opponent first play and not use sabotage, you're usually not too worried about
Yeah,
getting the sabotage later in the round. And yeah, that second alchemist here is taking the game. So
yeah. Yeah,
the
close
Akasha
game
is
there.
winning.
Yeah, close game there. Good draws for the Akesha there at the very end to get 2 alchemists that are just too big for the Kojo to deal with, despite having the one removal of the mana eruption to take care of the first one. Fun game to get to watch there at the end. But yeah, Kalon, Trailblazer Uniques can be pretty cool. I don't think they have been as popular as the Bella Senkas these days as far as this set is concerned, but I don't think very many cards have been as popular as that card specifically in the unique
Yeah.
format. But yes, we are in the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 10. We are currently in still the Swiss round number 1. Not sure how many games are still going. Doesn't look like that many. Maybe just one or two. One looks like. So we'll go to it right here and see if we can catch the end of the game on table 50.
And a Athalma's mirror match.
What a
That
way
is,
to end round one.
yeah.
The top of Faunus is quite far ahead, but they are low on time. We'll have to finish the game here in a couple minutes, but it is an early round, so we may not see BGA be too picky at this point. They are only one advance away with a bunch of cards in hand and the potential of a small step, but we'll have to see if that is actually the case because we have seen a lot of, I guess, Ysmir decks start removing uh, multiple small steps, if any, sometimes. So we'll have to see how that turns out. I have to imagine a lot of them are still running at least one, but we will see a unique Moon Caregiver coming out of the bottom of Faunus.
And this one is I've seen people actually look for these kinds of uniques for Yizmi by now. Just making the next card or spell just cost one less as basically a zero mana after you kind of. And at the beginning, I was asking myself why you would run these, but yeah, they are just after use and they are bodies where you can put your boosts on.
Yeah.
So they do have a way to be played. But yeah, they're definitely not as impactful as these card loopings, but uniques that
Yeah, definitely.
we've seen so often.
Yeah, we are seeing a lot of quick plays here from both players, being aware of the time limit. But a lot of spells going back and forth here. The bottom of Faunus taking a little bit more time at this point. Probably no more one costs to be able to be played, and they do have to cover both expeditions here in order to prevent the top of Faunus from taking the game. And we will see that Katagir and Mage Dancer come out. Interesting that we didn't see it come out a little bit earlier, potentially, to take the benefit of those spells, but probably a little bit afraid of things like Off You Go or something to that effect hitting the board. And speaking of Mage Dancers, we get to see one in the reserve now.
Yeah, now probably the best win condition for Hurricane is just waiting out and hoping that the time limit actually hits. But other than that, it looks like this top of Faunus with that, especially with that Mage Dance on reserve, is just threatening to take the game and most likely put enough boosts on. And yet there we do already see the pass. So unless the top of Faunus isn't wasting all of the time now, they should just be able to take this.
Yeah, a little
And
bit risky here from the top of Honest, not just passing and taking the game, just
yeah,
trying to show off what they had left when they could have just the game could have just ended and they could have lost there, but they will take the game and the victory and, showing off a little bit in order to prove that they had plenty left in hand opposed to just letting BGA take that one. So
I would have really liked that time of just just punishing people for showing their cards and playing more than necessary. But
Yeah.
yeah, of course, you
Mhm.
can still do that most of the times.
Not that time around, but yeah, that would have been quite funny to see. Um, we are getting into the Swiss round 2 of the AWOL season 2, Monday weekly, number 10. I wanna thank everyone that has joined us thus far in the chat and who may be watching this on YouTube. Um, Keelan guy is saying, "Why win the game when one could win the game harder?" That's true, it's true.
Yeah,
I'm still waiting for the people, or at least getting it on stream of someone playing to the point where they have exactly 6 mana and then playing small step giant leap just to do the BM kind of thing, but, haven't seen that on stream quite yet. We are in, Swiss round 2, as I mentioned. We'll then pick some games to figure out what we have going here. A lot of stuff to take a look at. We'll have to see if we can find some names that aren't always on here potentially, but I feel like at this point, a lot of people are always on or have been on at some point, so makes it a little bit more difficult. But we could always go with something a little bit random. Table 34. I'm just gonna click and see what
sure.
we got going there. Another French standoff between two French players, which we're playing altered, so more than likely when we were watching a game, they're probably going to be French, especially on the EU time slot. And honestly, even in the Wednesday time slot, we'll probably see a lot of French players. So I know it's a little bit later for them now on Wednesdays, but we'll still see a good amount. And we'll keep on refreshing until we get through the game art.
Yeah,
And
that always takes a while.
it's always nice when you can get in ahead of the game art sometimes, but,
Yeah.
let's see. We are in we'll see a Tasia versus a Traced being played here, so getting to see
Oh, that is interesting.
some different heroes compared to just the standard Sigismar and Aphana stuff. So, we'll have to see how this one turns out. Always fun to see what someone can put together as far as a Trace deck list, I'd have to say.
I've already got the deck lists, and this traced list is a Haven list. It also includes some Armored Jammers and Ouroboros Bastions. There are, interestingly enough, no rare Frankensteins in this deck list.
Mm,
And when it comes to the uniques, they seem like resupply or draw uniques, and yeah, yeah, they seem like just like draw uniques. And there's a very nice reporter order where you can draw a card, but you'd have to sacrifice something and then put something from your hand in reserve.
yeah,
And
we
there's also a kind of mass fleeting unique for this trace here. It's just giving fleeting when something leaves the reserve, but we've definitely also seen that for fan lists.
Yeah, that's true. We will see one of those uniques in the Vike, and it's if you control a token, you may play exhausted cards from reserve, and you may sacrifice a robot or permanent. If you do draw a card, otherwise resupply. So a little bit of resupply, like you mentioned before. We will see the one for one. And Cole, a French standoff, I believe, is when they start fencing each other with really large baguettes. But I'm not quite sure. Either way, we'll see what's going on here. We do get the resupply from the rare spindle harvesters. coming from the Tasia, always nice to get if you can get that additional boost, and that will be courtesy of the Ogun that was also played in the previous day. So we'll have to see how the Trace is able to start getting some cards out of the reserve and start building up those counters. I'll be curious to see how fast they can get to those 5 counters. And when you hit a frozen delivery, that's usually pretty good, but they have limited mana to play different things here.
Yeah. And what do you expect this Aja's uniques to be?
The Tasia uniques? I mean, honestly, I don't know. I mean, if they're not the anchoring uniques, it's usually something to do with boosting stuff a lot of the time. I've also seen some pretty weird types of uniques come out of Muna, but yeah, if I'm betting on uniques, I'm usually betting on anchoring uniques, and if not that, some variation of boosting uniques.
Okay, yeah, it's just the anchoring uniques. But interestingly enough, there's a Spindle Harvester unique, which a lot of people might not like too much since it's taking your Harvester rare slots, which are just probably one of the best rare slots in the deck. There, other than that, is a Daughter of Yggdrasil, so it definitely has a downside since it's drawing your opponent a card. And interestingly enough, the last mass anchoring one is a Verdant bag, and it has no condition to lose its defender. So when that Verdant bag is played, that expedition can't move forward.
Yeah, so you'll have a verdant back that you wanna keep out there to anchor people, anchor different characters, but you also wanna advance on that side, so,
Yeah,
not the most ideal, but, I guess if you're always winning on one side and just blocking on the other, it's not too bad, and the
yeah.
Tasia did go 2-0 on that last day there, after the double plant boosted up by that Ogun that came from the reserve, so still looking in a pretty good spot, and the Trace has a lot of work to get to those 5 counters, although both cards in the reserve will be helpful to that, and we'll just go ahead and add another one with that Keylon Elemental. They're gonna get pretty close to just, like, overloading the reserve again at the end of the turn because they only have 3 mana. I guess they could play everything, but then they would still overload at that point,
Yeah.
so we'll have to see.
They kind of have to resupply a 1 mana card with their resupplies to not overload here, but that's that's a bit of a gamble to actually hit that.
Yeah, I thought I was definitely gonna see just one of the cards from reserve instead of something from hand there. That kinda surprised me a little bit, but, maybe they have something in mind that I'm not aware of, but, we'll have to see what they do, and then past that, just getting to their counters, they have to worry about the Tasia and the board that they're building up because they have some decent sized characters, and they still have 4 mana left to play with, and it looks like all the Trace will be doing is throwing out some resupplies with some lower statted cards.
And I do like that Walrus for the trace. It's not necessarily the best card, but I kind of like it. The artwork is also just I just kind of like this card. It's a cool one.
Yeah, I know I tried, using it in place of, like, an Amelia Earhart once upon a time because I just wanted to try the new card, but do you think there's ever a scenario where you're using both the Walrus and Amelia Earhart in a deck list, or are you using one or the other, you think?
I think most of the trace lists are running both of these.
Hmm,
Looking at, I think you're rather running the Amelia than the Walrus since its stats are just more consistent. I feel like, but
hmm.
this trace list is definitely running both. So both of them are also a 3 up on the deck. So yeah, we are probably able to see a lot of one costs from reserve for this trace here.
Yeah, they will get up to 4 counters here if they choose to play the Walrus, which I have to imagine they will. Um Or even though it doesn't really help because otherwise it's going away anyway, and they do get that companion side. But, another one advance for the Tasia is putting the Trace a little bit too far behind, in my opinion, as far as this game is concerned, but, at least the Tasia's running low on resources. They will get the resupply out of the Spindle Harvester again, though, after seeing that Ogun come out.
And now, interesting decision for the traced. Do they now keep that Ouroboros, or do they want to play for tempo next turn and they do decide that they do keep that Ouroboros. So I'm not too sure if they have a lot of resupply effects that this might just allow them to chain into resupplies. And even if the Haven sadly isn't what it used to be, so you can't really get too many boosts of your Haven, and therefore I'm not too sure what this our browser is doing and what you're trying to cycle into.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe probably just trying to get to all these one cost characters like the Amelia and the Walrus.
Yeah, definitely could be a situation here. We will see the Tasia immediately utilize that support ability from the So in order to hopefully it not get sabotaged at any point, potentially coming from the Traced. We will see the Trace hit the 5 counters after the Tasia does get that anchored aloe vera out. So even with the Tasia lower on resources as far as in hand and in reserve, being able to utilize those anchored characters that will do some nice resupplying for them, as is the usual for the Muna hero, will be quite nice and will make it difficult for the Trace to catch things up. And yeah, I want to say thanks to everyone in the chat saying hi. Appreciate all the different stuff. If you have any questions, feel free to throw them out there. I know everyone's probably an expert on one thing or another. I've been watching lot of Altered, but if you want to know like my favorite color or something, feel free to ask. I know Runefolk's is what was your favorite color, Runefolk?
um, that's a good question. I'd say probably Bravos.
Bravos? Okay.
Probably, yeah.
Okay. That's fair. That's fair. What is my skincare routine? So what I like doing is I like starting off with a nice CeraVe wash, and then I also use a nice CeraVe hydrating toner. And I also have I think it's Paula V like cream that I use after that, and then of course we have some niacinamide and some other things. Got to keep your skin healthy. It's not uncool to want to look pretty late in life is all I have to say, but, either way, we will see the Tasia continue to advance at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blue's favorite color is beige. Guy trying just on point. We will see that double resupply that I mentioned earlier coming out here for the Tasia, making a little bit too many resources for the Trace to deal with at this point, potentially, especially with only a 7 mana. Um, Definitely an uphill spot to climb here, but not impossible, I guess. We'll have to see how it turns out.
Yeah, and we still haven't seen any uniques for the Stager side, but with all the cards they've gotten so far, they surely didn't need it. And already that these expeditions for the Tasia look so good. And it's probably very hard for the Strays to play or come back here.
Yeah, making it quite difficult. We actually do have other non random questions in the chat other than the that are actually altered related. So Runefolk, if Demeter advances alongside Persephone, does it stay alive when Persephone leaves the zone?
Yes, since I haven't actually tested it, but yeah, and from my knowledge, since both should leave at the same time, but as at the time the Persephone is in the expedition, it should still be forest, so the meter should stay. But I haven't tested, so I might be wrong on that. But yeah, from interaction knowledge, that should be how it works.
Definitely. We do have a lot of anchored characters out here, or at least one, and then a lot of other stats that were previously anchored for the Tasia, and not that much mana left here for the Trace to work with. They could resupply off that Lyric Chronicler to try to find something that is deep, deep, deep in their deck to take this game to some future turns potentially, but it will be quite difficult. We'll have to see what they come up with here. Um, Elon Guy uses Nivea beard care gel to avoid irritation. That's always a good choice. I do a oil routine for my beard as well. You gotta take care of the skin under the beard as well as what you see on the outside. It's always beneficial for your face as a whole because you hate it if you have to shave your beard and there's just like weirdness underneath there, you know? It's not pleasant for anyone, but we do see a resupply coming out here. We'll get that Amelia Earhart, like you mentioned, they are running the Walrus and Amelia in this deck list. But I don't think that'll stop that companion side. It will be able to contest a little bit on the hero side, but still plenty of mana left for the Tasia, and one of them is just gonna prevent more resupply of the Trace at this point.
Yeah, and that that Jack Frost here looking very nice, but yeah, kind of getting countered by the Vike, but yeah, the Vike isn't enough stats, and we do see that Mana Reaping coming out afterwards. So for 1 mana, there's nothing this Trace can do here, from what I know, and this should just be game.
Yeah, unfortunately for the Trace, that Axiom Haven will no longer boost that Amelia Earhart to help them tie that expedition, and we will just be looking most likely at a clean 2-0 to end this game for the Tasia. Just too much going on. They had to use all the resources to finish the game out there at the end, but that's all they needed to do, and we will see a Tasia victory over the Traced for this matchup.
Yeah.
And we'll go ahead and head back to the Swiss round two. Once again, I want to say thank you to everyone that has joined us thus far. We are watching the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly. Number 10. This is the EU time slot for folks that want to get some games in from across the Atlantic on my side of things, but maybe you're still in the US and you're watching this from home or while at work. Appreciate your view as well. Either way, we'll take a look to see what games we have left here. Anything that's standing out that you want to take a look at?
I definitely know what I want to look at for the next round, but that's when it comes to the next round. Um, but other than that, I don't know. For next round, I've seen someone is on Arjun
Mm,
this time around, and that's I definitely got to take a look at.
yeah, definitely. I wouldn't be too upset at that. Let's go ahead and take a look at table 49. Why not? It has some low percentages on
Oh,
it. Not that BGA percentages are in any way accurate, but we can at least take a look. And sure, we do have another trace, this time with two Haven Bravos Bastions out, up against a Faunus and is actually currently in the lead.
yeah, and both of these players' names are I've seen quite often, and I've seen quite high on the leaderboard, and it's interesting to see them on already pretty much the lowest table, but probably both just lost round one and now are facing each other here. And yeah, this position is looking quite okay for the Traced, and a Farnas with only 3 cards in hand isn't the scariest, but definitely still has the potential to just come back with a lot of magical trainings and whatever spells they might draw. But we do already see 3 Mage Dancers in the discard for
Mm,
the Farnas, so at least that threat is gone, and therefore we see another unique for the Sophanas here with that Spindle Harvester, which is a very nice one, a 1 cost that's bouncing a spell when leaving the reserve and only needs a single boost.
yep. Always a good card to be able to be played there. But like you mentioned, having those Mage Dancers out is definitely a big spot here for the Trace. So we'll see how that turns out. We do see the field reinforcements being played by the Aphanis as well. It is seems like it's getting a little bit more popular on occasion for Aphanis players, but is not in every deck list. It definitely, I feel like, would be a lot more popular if it was the actual rare version of field reinforcements that you get in Ortis, but it is fleeting when it is played, so you don't get the double chance to use it. But would have been interesting if they made that choice to see Aphanis players if they would actually use that more often or not. What do you think?
I've been reading chat and and wasn't quite listening. I didn't quite catch the question,
Yeah,
honestly.
so if for the field reinforcements, in the Ysmir version was actually the rare version from Ortis where it didn't have fleeting on it, do you think it would
And
be used more often, by
and
Ysmir in general?
it would have then cooled on, right? I
Yeah,
think, yeah, I probably think it would then just take the Moth to a Flame spot, since Moth to a Flame, well, Moth to a Flame is a common actually, so I'm not too sure, but yeah, definitely having that cooldown on it is probably a lot better, and it's making it a lot better as a turn one play. So yeah,
yeah.
probably would just see more play then.
Yeah. Would have been interesting to see, but either way, getting back to the game here, a lot of small costs being played, and we will see the Afanis just go ahead and pass here. So if the Trace has anything left here to try to get that double advance, they can potentially take it. What we see in the reserve doesn't seem like it would be quite enough. Does the hook make it work? Does not, it does not. So maybe just looking at a one for one, but we do not know what is in hand at this point. Oh wait, they haven't activated their havens yet, have they? Nope, they got both.
Yeah, but I think there's still not really a way for them to double advance since they're not advancing yet, and Hooked isn't really helping in advancing. But yeah, they go that okay. That Kill and Elemental did not really a lot for now, but yeah, together with that bike, it's still in advance and interesting. They prefer to just get that bike into reserve over playing anything, over just playing that Villain Elementals, since I think that Hooked is quite a good card at just trading if you're already ahead. Yeah, they're just going ahead and discard that Foundry Mechanic. And
Mhm.
yeah, I think I would have just liked keeping that bike in hand a bit more, but maybe they just didn't see their one mechanic wasn't fleeting. So yeah.
Yeah, might have been a good idea to keep the Vike, but either way, we'll see how is going to turn out. Now they are going to decide to mana here, so it makes me curious to see what they ended up drawing. I thought we might not see them mana here because this may be their last turn, but they decide to go ahead and do it. And I assume we'll be seeing the traceability early, or they may try to get rid of that spindle harvester depending on what they have for removal. But we will just go ahead and see the Vike right away.
Yeah, and now it gets a bit tricky to play that Hooked, since you kind of have to play it late into the round when you're seeing where the boosts of the Aphanas have went, but with only basically two other cards that you might not have enough time, and actually that Conjuring Seal might give the Trace enough time, with 3 mana being used up, and now maybe not enough time to stall out to play enough characters, plus spells to boost up your characters. And we do see another unique here coming out in the Keelan Elemental, and it's quite a nice one, resupplying and putting a card from your hand in reserve. So getting these walruses online, that is quite nice.
Yeah. Yeah, the the Ymir field does have fleeting. We were just saying potentially if it didn't, if it would be more popular or not. But yeah, it definitely does have fleeting, which is why you probably don't see it as often as far as the field reinforcements is concerned. But who knows? Maybe one day they'll start buffing cards instead of eroding them to go negative. Probably not, but would be cool. Either way, uh, good unique, like you mentioned before, a one cost Keylon elemental from hand, two costs from reserve that lets you resupply and put a card from your hand in reserve. Setting up both of those walruses, like you mentioned. I have to assume this is one of those scenarios where they're prioritizing the walruses over the Amelia Earhart potentially, or are they running both again? I'm not seeing
I
any
don't have
Amelia. Oh,
I
they do
don't
have
have
an Amelia
the
in discard, so,
okay, yeah.
um, they potentially are running both then.
But at this point, the viruses definitely with these expeditions feel very nice, and that's probably the one upside of the viruses over the Amelia. Um, since when you're both in a water expedition, these are just very good.
Yeah, so we can see everything that's left in the reserve be played here by the Traced. It just depends on how they wanna play it with those boosts, and they're just gonna use 1 boost apiece here for the walruses, it looks like. The Faunus has to know the hooked is coming as well, so how they play this should be quite interesting with only 4 mana left.
And I think with only 4 mana left, you're not really able to outstat these 8 stats anyway without a Mage Dancer, and, if you already had a Mage Dancer in play, this might be possible, but without, I feel like it's not really possible. Oh,
Yeah.
what cards would they have to be?
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what, like, potential line that they could come up with here, if there is any hero that can throw out a lot of stats with and flip things around with a minimal amount of mana, it's usually a Faunus, but, it doesn't look like that will be the scenario here, but it could surprise us. We know what the Trace has coming, so does the Afanis. We don't know what the Afanis has, and after that draw, it definitely seems like they're digging here. So we'll have to see what they're able to come up with in their hand with the stuff that they have in the reserve not being quite enough at the moment.
Yeah, and we've seen both the GGs come out already, so, both players should basically know it's over, and, just making sure that it actually is for the Tracy, and playing it out, since the Afanas also already played another card. But, yeah, this also with this hooked in reserve, it should just be over, and there's no possible way for the Afanas to come back.
Unless 3 cost Blizzard.
Yeah, f yeah, buff that card, please, yeah? We are not seeing that that's enough. Actually, the Trace we've seen before was running a single Blizzard in their list.
Okay. We will see that hooked come out, and it's going to go ahead and move the disciple. So only 1 mana left. It will be with a helping hand. Won't be enough to stop both sides, and we'll just get a nice 1 for 1. And the traced will take it over the dominant Afanis hero thus far in the meta, and cool to see the, Axiom side of things do well for once. Has to be, not the most popular these days, but always fun when someone can make a deck list work.
Yeah, definitely. And even without these strong havens, or with these nerfed havens, that they worked out this game. But
Definitely.
definitely noticeable nerf.
Yes, it indeed is. We are watching the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 10, still in round 2 of the Swiss for everyone that is currently watching on the stream. Want to say thank you once again. A few different games left open before we get to round 3 of the Swiss. Let's see what we can watch in the meantime. I'll go ahead and click on table 10. Why not?
Cool.
We'll switch on over here. It will be a Tasia versus an Aphanis. A lot of cards in the reserve for the Tasia, a lot of cards in hand for the Aphanis, and both of them are all even. We'll see if we find that small step giant leap through draw for the Aphanis, or we just see the stats that are on board for the Tasia just take the game.
Yeah, and in the reserve right now we're seeing a very nice Parvati unique that is mass anchoring, and it anchors itself basically on play when you're putting a card from your hand in reserve. And that's exactly what the Tasia is probably looking to do right now. And giving out these boosts, probably also now anchoring itself. So that is definitely a cool card. Oh, actually not anchoring itself, just keeping the cards in reserve in hand.
Yeah, so either way, we will see some beauty sleeps being played, even a rhyme frost from the Aphanis. Um, not sure if they can keep up here, but definitely is a possibility with the Mage Dancer still to be played, and maybe some more 1 cost spells, and even a sleight of hand more than likely picking up that beauty sleep. It will in fact do that. Um, and with a studious disciple in the reserve, it also is going to reduce the cost of some spells as well. So Definitely still in the game here for the Afanis. A lot of stats to make up with here, especially after getting that Baba Yaga slept, but they're gonna give it a shot.
Yeah, and they probably have to now go onto that hero's companion side and try to boost up their mage dancer to 6 stats. And actually, just going for that hero side, I think that's a bit harder to outstat since you're going up against 9 stats there, and that beauty sleep is getting that tough cost. So, but it's still enough with putting that artery to sleep. So we're going into tiebreaker, and yeah, that Tasia has a lot more stats going into tiebreaker. But that Baba Yaga's still sticking around for all these boost targets, and both players actually quite low on cards, even though the Afana still has in total 2 cards more available. But yeah, at dusk, they're kind of even since the 2 resupplies are coming out for this Tasia.
Yeah, definitely,
It's
and
actually
we
going to time.
time, so BB Turnus is gonna be out of time. That will be the Afanis that ends up losing that one there, and the Tasia taking the game. Might have been how that turned out. It definitely looked like that was the scenario with the amount of stats on the board for the Tasia. But, yeah, 2 different, rounds there where people are using all the time available to them, making this, tournament go as long as possible, which we love because we love watching and commentating over Altered, and I know everyone in the chat prefers prefers that too, rather. Um, would have been cool to see that similar scenario happen in that, first round where we saw the person playing cards needlessly despite being negative in time, but, yeah, we didn't get to see that. We are going into Swiss round 3 of the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 10. Once again, thank you for everyone that has joined thus far. We have how many people undefeated? About half the setup here, so 28 players. We'll probably take a look at some other folks at the moment and maybe start looking at those top tables here in a round or two, unless there's something you particularly want to take a look at.
I
But for,
was actually looking at probably the 2 best Spanish Muna players facing each other with Is Lopez against Franico.
okay.
But we can also just look at one of the lower tables if you prefer that.
Would you you said there was another setup that you wanted to look at in the previous round, right?
Oh
Is
yeah,
that
true.
the
I
Arjun list?
almost forgot that, but yeah, I can look which table 35 is that, and that's also quite a nice matchup with Mianhe against Chomp. So probably a Arjun against Lindaway, and we probably don't see that too often. But oh, it's a Arjun against Sierra. That
Nice. I'm
that is
glad I
good to see.
remembered for you because I want
Yeah.
to take a look at this here. So we're starting off hot here in the third round of the Swiss with a Arjun versus a Sierra. Sierra probably a little bit more popular than Arjun at the moment, but still not a meta hero by any means. And I'm also excited to see this Arjun being played. It looks like a day one setup. We had a Daughter of Yggdrasil being played and a Brass Bug Hub for the Sierra, but we'll have to see how everything else turns out. And it looks like that Arjun gets hit by a rare armor jammer, so will not get the benefit of that Daughter of Yggdrasil from the reserve, but instead is just going to keep on harvesting up with the common harvest and a unique Loki that will not get the effect because it's being not being played from hand. There. And the Sierra will just throw out the mechanical training to get another sabotage, I believe, not allowing
Oh,
the Arjun to utilize that Jack Frost from reserve and feeling comfortable with that Loki being played from reserve because it will not have the effect, despite having some decent stats for only 4 cost.
yeah, and that Loki, unfortunately being resupplied, but these Lokis have definitely been a nice pickup for all of these Muna players that are trying to play with the Daughter of Yggdrasil and cards that are trying to get your opponent card advantage, since you're kind of giving them card advantage, and with that Loki, you're nullifying that kind of. And as soon as you played your Loki, you're basically saying, well, all my characters should be quite high statted, and I should just at that point have better cards total in hand. So that's oftentimes the game plan for these low-key lists. And yeah, that Tasia is also getting pretty much perfect setup for themselves this far. Well, maybe not perfect. The Braspa Cup is at this point almost used up, and that is, yeah, they still get the Nylum, probably get that Armored Jammer discarded this turn, and still gets to sabotage that Loki after just exhausting it.
Yeah, and more than likely, we're gonna see another card get sent to reserve, so it's not gonna be able to hit that Loki because, of course, Arjun can get rid of their own cards from reserve. They don't need you to do it for them. And we'll just go ahead and see an Anchored Daughter of Yggdrasil in the rare. Probably not using the common very often unless you're planning to just play it from the reserve at any point. But we're gonna see a Arjun that's still ahead on the board and being able to advance and keep a lead despite the Sierra doing quite well with the cards that they've been playing thus far. And we'll see a one for one. I'll be curious to see if this Arjun does have some more of those Lokis. I know typically when we see one of them, we see multiple of them, and it should be fun to see if that's what we're gonna have pop up. And I'm sure you probably actually have the deck list to verify that or
Oh,
not.
haven't actually to
Mhm.
take a look at them, but I can to take a look at them real quick.
Yeah, for sure. But a lot of cards in hand for both heroes at this point, and should be curious to see how this next day works out for both of them.
Not sure how each of these players has gotten so many cards with two Daughter of Yggdrasil's been played from hand. But yeah, I'm
A lot of
definitely looking forward for some more Lokis here from Jan.
Okay, gotcha. So we do have the infamous 6 mana turn here. We may be looking at a Brass Bug Hive being played potentially. Um, it does not look like that is the case though, because we're going to use a last counter on that Brass Bug Hub in order to produce a Brass Bug. So um, no potential here for the rare hive. I mean, I guess they could be running the common, but I doubt it. And we will just go ahead and see a rare Muna Merchant coming out from the Argent and Spike player.
I'm taking a look at these uniques for this Argent here. The second one is arguably maybe even a better Loki, since it's a 6 cost from hand and a 3 cost from reserve. The stats are a bit weaker, but yeah, you probably don't care too much about your stats, Loki stats, when it's just a 3 cost completely overstated character from reserve. Completely, it's a 5 for 5, so kind of the Yggdrasil stats. But yeah, of course, having that upside of being a Loki from hand. And yeah, these are some really nice cards.
We do see the Sierra opt to throw all their tokens on one side here to just stack things up. And with no mana left, the Arjun decides to take advantage of that, be fine with the one for one, and why not throw out a Lear Festival that's going to help you draw and
Yeah.
add another card to your hand?
Yeah, and interestingly enough, the other cards for this Argent here aren't, or the uniques are not really supporting this festival, but it's still currently in play, and there are still enough cards that synergize with this festival, with cards like Kodama, with all these anchoring characters. There are also even Keelan elementals to put cards from your hand in reserve and get additional fleeting markers onto the board. So yeah, it's a cool list, but it's definitely not focused on winning through festival.
Yeah, just another condition in there potentially for them to make it work. And we do have um, them in the chat mentioning that they're cooking things up, and Keelan guy thanking Kenny or Mion. I don't know how to say it, but yeah, I mean, someone has to pick up your slack, Keelan, since you don't actually make origin lists anymore and you just do other things. So we do appreciate the people that actually do try to do so. But either way, we will see a mechanical training. Go ahead and trigger an exhaust, throw out a moth, and they will, interestingly enough, target the Moon Merchant to prevent a resupply from the Arjun.
Yeah, that definitely makes decent amount of sense since with a festival, you're able to dig through your deck further and just get these combo pieces together. But yeah, of course, that daughter now threatening to take an advance, but interestingly enough, not using that hero
Okay, good.
ability yet and discarding the Muna Merchant. I'm not too sure if then the Argent maybe just wants to keep that hero ability for next turn, since probably you don't want to anchor one of your next characters since it's then not going into reserve and you don't have fleeting markers for your festival. But now with seeing that boom, um, you might again not be you might now not be able to play through festival. So now you might just want to anchor characters again.
Yeah, I'll be curious. So they do decide to target the festival here. I thought they might decide to target the daughter because it would make it difficult for the Argent to be able to complete the festival regardless this turn. Especially being down on the tumult because yeah, the festival is a threat, but at this point you're also behind as well, and that daughter is definitely threatening to advance another spot regardless of what you do here. So um, I get it, but I almost would have preferred not giving up the advance at this point to try to get something out
Yeah.
yourself. But we'll have to see how it turns out for the Sierra.
And now just that Muna Merchant going into reserve and still getting an anchored character out into play. And a Aloy, that is a very nice card to anchor, and it's the Arjun is on game point and is up 3 expeditions. So looking super strong, going into pretty much the perfect expedition for this Aloy. And yes, it's looking to probably take this game this turn
Yeah,
unless the Sierra can find important cards. But I think even at this point, Brasswork Hives are probably too late into the game,
yeah.
since only putting out 666 stats without any additional support abilities might not be enough. Maybe there are additional copies of um, mechanical training in hand to create more
Yeah.
Brassbucks. But yeah, even that Lost in the Woods now looking to discard any potential hives.
Yeah. It's one of those scenarios where I feel like that Lyra Festival is almost more a distraction for this Argent, especially if you can get free advances and you're already ahead on the board kind of thing. And that could definitely be the scenario here, especially playing something like a Sierra hero, where they're probably looking more towards the late game. So yeah, this acts as a distraction, and if the Sierra doesn't deal with it, you might be able to get a win off of it. But if they do deal with it, you're probably advancing in this scenario of double advancing like they did on the last day, and there's nothing you can do about it. So we will see the third tree come out. It's a regular forest out here, and we will see a moth because of it. And Sierra looks to be throwing them all on one side for some reason, assuming that they may have some type of removal for the aloe vera, but they will throw the bug on that side. So I'm not sure what they have left in hand for 4 mana, but we'll have to see how that turns out. And a beauty sleep from the Argent is going to make it even that much more difficult for the Sierra to throw any other characters out at this point.
Yeah, and we do see a nice flawed prototype here, and this one being the rare version and even being able to sacrifice that Nyla now and get a lot of boosts is sadly just getting put to sleep as well. And this is already the game. But this was a nice setup for the flawed prototype. But yeah, that's the weakness of cards like these. Just removal or sleeps. That is at this stage of the game is just sadly way too powerful.
Yeah, and Axiom isn't working with anything that's gonna provide something tough, and just for fun, it looks like the Argent's gonna throw out that unique Loki that you mentioned before, that's 6/3, everyone's discarding, everyone's gonna draw 3 cards, and it will have enough stats in combination of the Aloe Vera to just go ahead and advance. The double advance will happen for the Sierra, but it doesn't quite matter because the Argent will take the game.
Yeah, cool game to see, definitely.
Yep, don't get to see Arjun win that often. I think the last time I got to see that was when Keelan was still playing Arjun and making people salty about winning over with a festival victory. But those were the good old days back in season one.
Yeah, these
We are,
daily festivals were
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, we are, in fact, in the season 2 setup here for AWOL Monday Weekly number 10. We are in the Swiss round 3. Thank you once again to everyone that has joined us thus far. Plenty of games still going on for Swiss round 3. That game went fairly quickly. Did you say you had another game you wanted to take a look at from this round? Or
Yeah, but it seems it's almost over, and I think table 8 might be even more interesting. The
okay.
probably 2 best Sigismund players at the moment with Awulis against Gladius. That
Yeah.
is looking like an absolute banger of a matchup here.
Yeah, and they're both dead even as we switch over here. And as you mentioned, I think the main difference that we see between these two players is just the types of uniques that they tend to use. Of course, Cletus is has the infamous Kakoba that I've seen a picture in the Altered Aces Discord where I believe he wrote it in the sand of a beach at some point for the
Yeah.
card because it's just that popular. And then, of course, we have Woolits breaking out the resupply uniques in mass that have done quite a bit of work for them. So we'll have to see how this one turns out and which uniques can reign supreme and which Sigismar deck lists can take the victory.
And interesting, Gladius offering that one for one here and threatening to just draw a card off of it. And Ulitz now has to think about taking that trade and or taking the advance. But if that last card is able to win, I think you're pretty much always taking it. But going down in cards might be a bit threatening in this matchup. But I'm not too familiar with this matchup.
We will go ahead and throw out that Legat out to just take that advance, like you mentioned, and get the 2-0 here. They will have to give up everything that they have in hand and give the draw to Clay on the top Sigismar here. So we'll have to see if those resources will be more beneficial to them on the top Sigismar over going behind at this point. Um, and interestingly, we will not see the mana from um, bullets on the bottom Sigismar. So they feel like they have enough between what's in the reserve and in hand to maybe even finish the game on this day.
I think winning this day is probably quite hard, but I think it's rather a decision of do I have if I'm manning here, can I use all of that mana, or am I maybe could I even maybe only play 3 cards even if I mana the card here? So yeah, there are definitely a lot of different factors into deciding if you're manning. Also for some Sigismas, at this point you're thinking, well, I drew into my Grand Endeavor and therefore I can decide to not mana. But knowing Wulitz's list, they are not running Grand Endeavor at all or any
Permanents.
permanent in general.
Yeah.
So yeah, this might still just be. I think if Bullets this turn had drawn one of their uniques, they would have most likely mana'd since these uniques are using pretty much all of the mana you can get,
Yeah.
and therefore this is probably a read that these uniques are just not in hand now.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, Clay's going to start off with just the attorney instead of throwing out the trooper immediately, possibly thinking that they may not even need it this day. But we'll have to see how that turns out. Bullets will go ahead and just respond with the Legat and just some more one cost slow play with a rare Ordish trooper being played by Clay. And then with 4 mana left, you always have to be worried about that unique that I mentioned earlier from Clay as far as the Kakoba threatening to just take any expedition at any point. But we'll have to see what Woolits can do. We have to assume, like you mentioned, that they can play just about everything or only 2 of the cards, and it doesn't really matter as far as mana. I know it's something I struggle with sometimes where I feel like even though I come to that scenario where I can play just a certain amount of cards no matter what, if I mana or not, but if the day goes on another time, what if I need that mana for the following day kind of thing? But that's what makes this game pretty cool. It makes you think of those things ahead of time and try to figure out how well you actually know your deck. And at this point, I feel like both of these players have played their deck so often that they very rarely misplay when they have to make those mana decisions. But we'll have to see what Woolits can pull out here. They're taking some time to set up this next turn. Have to imagine they want to try to at least get one advance here, to put themselves adjacent and be that much closer from winning the game.
Yeah, definitely mistakes for these two players are probably at this point rarely seen since I consider them probably two of the best pilots of the Sigismar lists. There are still probably other contenders. I'd say just looking at the leaderboard, there are probably players like T2 that are also looking quite strong on the leaderboard. But we do see that Ebenezer Scrooge coming out here for Clay, and yeah, it's looking nicely to lock up that expedition. And
Yeah,
maybe that there are tools to remove this one and play afterwards, play out characters afterwards. But and interestingly enough, I'd expect to see Ebenezer Scrooges in the list for Woolits since they synergize quite well together with these mass resupplying uniques, but they
mhm,
do prefer just playing Esotox and getting the draw supportability over that sleep supportability.
right. Yeah, it's interesting because Clay definitely could have still played that token generator in addition to those 3 characters to potentially 2-0 that time around, opting instead to keep it for this following day to potentially get a block here on Woolits. So I was curious to see what other card Clay had at hand here as far as another 1 cost, but we'll have to see how that turns out here in the following day and how things set up. But yeah, I think it's an interesting aspect that you're talking about with these Sigismar lists and how they're filling up those final like common slots overall, whether it's something like Ebenezer Scrooge or even an Isotop. It's always fun to see which ones they prefer. We see some things as far as like Ortis Gatekeeper in a common slot. Really just depends. But we will go ahead and see a 1 cost unique from Woolits and the Ortis Trooper. Having those, if you control a token, you can go ahead and resupply when another non token character joins your expedition. So they do decide to mana, and we'll have to see how many cards that they can get out and potentially throw out on the board.
I think I think these troopers are probably the best of the best, but I think they are slightly flawed. I think the only flaw about these is they are orders troopers. They would be even better if they are just 3 paper heralds to get this effect. But since you usually want to run your rare troopers and you're usually not really running the paper heralds at all in your lists, but yeah, definitely still I love these uniques. They are just amazing. And if I had them myself, I would also just start spamming Sigismund and play the stacks as much as possible. They seem super fun
Yeah.
and super strong as well.
Maybe not for long though, because it's definitely being watched by some
That's true.
folks
Yeah,
over there at Equinox. And I feel like if the token generators are going to get targeted, you know that the resupplies are probably going to get targeted as well. Should be interesting to see how that turns out here at the end of season 2. But a lot of time left still for that decision to be made. And we'll go ahead and start the resupplying here with a Baba Yaga being played and seeing a cadets come into the reserve.
Keelan in chat saying that he's thinking of these trooper uniques as saving the rare slots for other things, but especially in these resupply lists, I'd argue that the rare troopers are probably still the best cards you could run as a rare slot. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure if that is saving a rare slot isn't too too much of an argument here, but yeah, definitely it's just amazing. Unique.
Yeah, it's hard to beat the rare troopers these days still, especially in the resupply type of deck list that you're mentioning. It feels like it'd just be too good to be to get it out there and just play for 1 cost and then resupply again, right? Um, But, yeah, I think I've had this discussion before because 'cause I've definitely seen some common troopers throw out there as far as people sacrificing those rare slots. but I feel like that's more common in like token generators potentially. But a lot of one cost cards being played here by both Sigismars at this point between the troopers and the mechanic. And why not? Let's go ahead and see a rallying call show up in the reserve. It won't cause a resupply, but it's also another one cost play. So we'll have to see how Clay responds with what cards are in hand and if they can stop Woolits from taking this final expedition on either side and taking the game.
Yeah, I think the Kakoba from Clay at this point would pretty much just double advance this turn, since getting 3 tokens plus the charge effect is quite strong, and they would be able to play a card before, so getting another token. So that is looking pretty strong and still 4 mana available. So Kakobas is still an option for Clay here.
Yep, still a lot there to be able to be played, and we will see what Woolits is going to do here first. Um, And it also could potentially look quite good for Clay if they, in fact, have that 2-0 advance and then maybe even into a sabotage on the final day to prevent Woolits from utilizing that unique trooper again and have very limited resources in another day here set up here. And sure enough, we will see we'll see Woolits get Kokoba'd, as Simon
Yeah.
has mentioned in the chat, and a lot of stuff on the board and a lot of stuff to get boosted because of it.
Yep. And this should just be a 2-0. I'd still expect to see a resupply here for Hulitz, just to get the best reserve possible, but I'd also already think that Trooper and Foundry Mechanic are probably one of the best things you can get into reserve. But I'd argue Paper might even be better than that Foundry, but it's still definitely now competing into that Kakoba for the next day that's looking to do the exact same. Might be a bit rough, especially if you don't find a sabotage, then this Kakoba is just most likely taking a double advance here again. And
Yeah.
yeah, I really hope for Rulets that they are able to find that sabotage here.
Yeah, and it also could be pretty big for, Clay if they find a sabotage of their own. Woolits, I believe, does also run exhaust, in the, Jack Frost as well, correct, on their deck list?
Oh yeah, I think they do, yeah.
Yeah, I know Clay isn't really big on the Jack Frost with their setup, and I believe they only still run spies, so that's the only interaction that they have with Wolitz's reserve. But either way, what a game! We're down to the final day here. Both players are dead middle in a pseudo arena kind of thing, except it's only in the water terrain and the mountain and forest terrain on the other side. But no different terrains at this point. Everyone's in the same spot, and we will go to see who can take this. And who knows, we might get a one for one and get to go to an arena as well. But either way, we're also coming pretty close to time at this point. Both players, one Clay's at less than a minute, and Woolet's at 2.5. So we'll have to see what we get going here.
Yeah, and in chat earlier mentioning that these uniques are not pay to win, and yeah, just look at them. How can these be pay to win? It's just classic game of all time. You see these every game.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, although Clay's Kakoba is infamous at this point and you always have to worry about it, I feel like as far as like a consistency thing, I'd be much if I'm queuing randomly and ran into Woolits, I would just want to give up immediately kind of thing because like those resupplies just can be way too brutal overall in my opinion as far as like consistency and uniques kind of thing. I still prescribe to the idea that you're not always hitting every single unique that can be super broken, but, if you're running into one of those resupply uniques, you're probably running into a second one at some point, right? So, um,
Yeah.
speaking of which, we do see that spy come out for Clay that I had mentioned before, so I'm sure Woolitz is happy that they did run into a second unique at this point in that Paper Herald, but I don't know if that'll be enough to have to deal with the Kokoba as well.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the interview you did with Clay at one point.
Mm.
Y- in the interview, there was mentioned that the some other player, I think also Altered Aces or maybe some other team, had a similar unique to this Kakoba, but as 3 cost and a Alchemist. Do you know which player that was?
I don't think he mentioned on who it was in the interview, if I remember correctly, um, because there are so many Altered Aces players. But if Clay's around and is watching this at some point, go ahead and let me know, let us know, and we'll share it around so everyone can bug that Altered Aces player to trade that to us. But I do also remember them saying that they weren't planning on trading it anytime soon. But
You
we
know,
will see that. That Issa talk that you mentioned earlier for Woolits come out here, and at this point, it just probably is going to be enough to block. Oh my gosh!
yeah, and Woolitz kind of thought it might be game with the Trooper coming out, but no,
Yeah,
that mechanic is just just blocking. And to that, I think I know who that other player might be that has
yeah.
this similar Kikobat card. It's who I mentioned earlier, T2, that
Oh
is
yeah,
currently on two and three,
yeah,
and they definitely have a unique that is pretty much the same, but only from hand and not on play. So
yeah.
this Kakoba might just be a little bit better since it's from both plays, but of course having that 3 cost might also be uh, just good enough.
Yeah, and honestly, everyone, like there is small enough variation in uniques that there could be an even better Kakoba out there with less restrictive effect or has slightly different stats. So it just gives you more incentive that if you haven't already, I mean, Beyond the Gates boxes are pretty cheap nowadays, or even Kickstarter boxes. Go out and buy some altered from your local game store and
Yeah,
see if you can find that next Kakobe unique and sell it for a couple $100. I'm sure someone on Altered Aces will take it.
yeah, definitely.
Speaking of which, we're going into another day. A lot of characters for Clay and Woods feels like they couldn't do anything about it, so they're just gonna pass, and we will see
Yeah.
Clay take that game. GG, glad we were able to watch that one. A lot of fun uniques, a lot of opportunities to promote people in buying cards, type of thing. What if there is no less restrictive outside was this clickbait? I mean, I've seen some really specific like I've seen uniques just be varying by the slightest amount, whether it's like one stat or just one variation of something or even a support ability change kind of thing, otherwise being exactly identical. So technically, especially with Equinox not changing their unique algorithm with Beyond the Gates, there could be another Krakoba out there like that. Just saying, there could be. Anyway, let's head on back to see what other games we got going here in the Altered Weekly Online Season 2 Monday Weekly number 10. Um, we are, in fact, in Swiss Round 4. That was the final match of the tournament for Swiss Round 3, not the whole tournament. But we are down to how many undefeated players at this point? 14 undefeated players. Um, is there anything in particular you want to take a look at, or should we just go at random? I think we're still doing 7 rounds, so we definitely can have the opportunity to check out some folks that may not normally be on stream quite yet if we want to.
Yeah, we can definitely look at something random or whoever
Oh.
you want to see.
All right, let's see. Anyone in chat have any suggestions on what we should watch? Is there a specific deck list that we should check out, or am I just going to pick a number at random? And duplicate Moonlight Jellyfish uniques. Yeah, there is a lot of stuff that is varying in the um, unique algorithm, so it would not surprise me in the least. I've seen.
Closest I've
Yeah, good.
Yeah. The closest I've seen two uniques be the same. I think that both of these were monolith legates that are token producers, and I think the only difference was a stat shift from forest to mountain or something like that. So a
Mm.
single stat point that was different, and that was kind of crazy.
Yeah, I appreciate the suggestions in there, but, I don't know which people are playing Linda Way exactly in the cache. You gotta help me out if you know someone that's doing it and have the inside knowledge there. I only know certain people certain times kinda thing, especially if they change it all the time. Alright, we'll just pick one at random and see if it's something. Before I show it, I'll pretend that I knew all along that whatever it was. Let's see here. What do we
Cole is
got?
asking for table 15.
Table 15, huh? Alright, let's see what we got.
That's Gap 1.0, and they are also on Twitch currently, so we could check out their gameplay as well.
Alright, let's go for it. Table 15.
And
Linda Way versus
know
Tasia.
I think I know why Cole suggested that one.
We do have a Linda Way, so we do get some of that Linda Way play that William H. mentioned. No Akesha this time, as far as what Kevin mentioned. And Cole just says it's a random number, but sure, sure, sure.
Yeah, sure,
Either
yeah.
Either way, it's an even matchup on the tumult, but Linda Wade's I mean, Tasia's running pretty low on cards, in comparison, but, we'll have to see what, happens here. We do have a rare jellyfish in the reserve for the Linda Way to help with some card draw, if they so choose, and only a 3/3/3 common Sneezer Shroom on the board for the Tasia at this point. So, okay, I'm not gonna even repeat that, Cole. You don't deserve that, in any way. I mean, we can cross our fingers, but that doesn't mean it's gonna happen, alright? So, either way, we'll get into the game all even, like I mentioned. Definitely could have another boosted up Sneezer Shroom with that Ogun in the reserve. You've played a little Linda Way yourself, right, Rune?
Yeah, not too much this season, but yes, still like probably around 10 games on Lindery this season.
How do you feel about the Tasia matchup when you have ran into it before?
If there's no Spindle Bastion, it can feel quite easy since you just remove the key targets with off you go, but as soon as there is, it feels a lot more difficult and it kind of feels like you have to be ahead to outstat the Tasia and well, you have to be ahead or even since you do have a small step in your deck and a small step at the later stages of the game is just game winning, or you kind of don't have really another way of winning. That it's really hard to outstat a Tasia when there's a lot of anchoring going on. I can actually take a look at the deck lists and see if there's these mass anchoring uniques coming down for the Tasia. But yeah, I think with without Bastion, it's probably Lindery favored. With Bastion, it's Tasia favored. I'd say.
Yeah. I get you. I feel like that could be the scenario for a lot of heroes these days, especially on the Ysmir side. Like, oh, I could destroy Tasia unless they have that fucking Bastion
Yeah.
out, man. Like, I can't. But we'll see how it turns out. We will see a boom come out here, take getting rid of that Sneezer Shroom, and
Yeah.
just looking like we're gonna see a trade here, one for one. In the meantime, and Lindaway does have the card advantage at this point, but with the Ogun coming out, the Sneezer Shroom, not the Sneezer Shroom, the Spindle Harvesters with the 2 boosts will get a resupply for the Tasia and help catch up a little bit on that card advantage.
And looking at the decks, this Tasia is running these mass anchoring ones, but usually the mass anchoring of choice are when a character you control gains a boost, and this one is when a character enters the expeditions.
Hmm,
So a bit less anchoring, but still very strong uniques. And for Wesh, there is there are Dorothys that are looking to sacrifice and double bounce. There are at dusk sacrifice and when I'm sacrifice draw, so very strong draw jewels. And another sacrificing unique as a Muna caregiver to just boost up characters.
nice.
So a lot
Alright.
of sacrifice support in the unique slots.
Indeed, indeed, and we will see a unique pop up here due to a resupply for the Tasia. And it is one of those anchoring ones. And if you control three or more characters, up to one target character with hand cost three or less, other than me, gains anchored. Just a lot of text in general, and it's from a hand resupply. If you control three or more characters, plants you control other than me gain one boost. So here we go. Let's see if they're able to utilize that here shortly.
I'm
Um,
not too sure if it's now a turn for them to actually play their Ogun, since you're only able to anchor a single character if there's no one cost from hand.
mhm.
So that might be a bit weird. But maybe one anchor is just enough this turn to just have an anchor going into next turn, since otherwise it might be a little bit weak on the tumult going into a Lindaway, since Moth Lantern is a card that can punish these no character boards for Tasia going into the start of a turn.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know if the Tasia is potentially wanting to try to keep that spindle out on the board as well, to try to get some more resupplies. I'm not sure what else they have in hand that would help do that, but they could also just be fine giving it up and trying to play it again next turn. But we will see that unique come out immediately, and it will have the ability to start anchoring things again. But instead, immediate off you go. Sorry, no more anchoring to happen here.
Yeah, and that's why Ofigo is so good into this matchup, since everything that the Tasia might threaten to play without having a spindle in play is just very easily removed with that Ofigo, especially when it's played from reserve and has that fleeting, so it can't be played again. And yeah, now might still be a 2 for 0 for the Stager, depending on what cards this Lindaway has. But there definitely seem to be options for a Lindaway to outstat a Spindle Harvester. But this oh actually the Thespian didn't get enough stats to didn't get the boosts as a 4 for 4. So now the Lindaway can sacrifice that jellyfish and get a draw, plus go 1 for 1.
Yep, we will see everything sacrificed there, and the Ysmir Stargazer also has some sacrifice abilities here. As far as when I'm sacrificed, draw a card. At dusk, you may sacrifice a character. As you mentioned, if you do draw a card. So a lot of drawing there available for the Lindaway, and of course, the Lindaways do love the at dusk sacrifice ability these days. Keelan guy, I know for sure, is one of those who likes to steal away those from other people that may want to play Lindaway. But in the meantime, we're dead even on the tumult still, and fairly even as far as cards available, but favoring the Lindaway just ever so slightly.
Yeah, I'd agree. At this point, no apparent anchors going out for the Asia here, and no Bastion, so it's looking quite hard. And these cards in reserve for this Linray do look to just draw a bunch of things. And also, this Linray has been able to play this game currently without having a um, Babas Isba in play, and still
Mhm,
manages to go even. And the card to draw is quite lacking a bit for the Lindaris with only two cards in hand. But now playing out that Stargazer, they are looking to change that and hopefully get some maybe even double progressions this day.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see how it works out here. See what cards they have in hand to potentially just sacrifice now, rather than having to wait for the at dusk setup, or they may just decide to go for the at dusk. We don't know quite yet. Definitely still some options here for the Lindaway as well as the Tasia, although they only have one card left in hand, and it looks like we may not even see whatever that card is, and we'll likely just see the Ogun being played and maybe just a one for one. But we'll have to figure it out and see if there's anything left for that Lindaway with two mana left to do, or if they're just going to take the one for one and get some drawing here at dusk.
Yeah, I'd kind of expect to see. we do see another off you go that is quite brutal, and that's looking to take a double advance here. Oh, it's actually only
Yeah,
taking that anchored array, so it's not a
yeah,
double advance, but I'm still, I think, a 1 for 1 and 2 draws here for the Lindaway with sacrificing that jellyfish. So it's still quite nice for the Lindaway here.
yeah. Still gets, the draws like you mentioned, Floral Tint doing some work there to prevent the anchoring card, from keeping it out there and having it have no effect as far as the off you go is concerned. So just a lot of cards now available to the Linda Wade. Not so many left for the Tasia, and no cards that are being anchored, as you mentioned before. So still looking quite good for the Linda Way on the Izmir Hero, I'd have to say. But it is not quite over yet. We'll have to see what the Tasia was able to draw here and if they're able to keep up with the Linda Way. The aloe vera does feel nice on the hero side in comparison to the companion side, but still a lot of work to do, especially with that Baba Zizba that you mentioned earlier finally coming out for the Lindaway.
I'm surprised to see this not immediately be a mana trade with just answering that ally immediately with an off you go.
Mhm.
But yeah, setting up your e-sport definitely also very solid, and you like to see it as Lindaway.
Indeed. So we'll have to see what the Tasia has left here in hand. Seems like the Lindaway is going to opt to just slow play this and potentially take a 2-0 here. Instead, we will see the aloe vera come out and use two four-cost aloe veras at this point to just throw things out. So I have to imagine we may even see a off you go just to do it and be fine, even if you don't get the advance on that side. Or we may see something else coming here from the Linda way. Maybe they're deciding to even throw a boom in there these days as far as sacrificing something and getting rid of an aloe vera completely. But we'll have to figure that out. No mana left here for the Tasia, and plenty of mana left for the Lindaway.
Yeah, and a slight thing I want to mention here, as Tasia player, you at this point I think it might be a bit better to play that ally from hand first, since if you're seeing there's a second ally, you probably want to off you go that second ally, so there's no chance to replay that ally on the next day, and getting that additional boost onto the ally from hand might be a bit better going into the next one, but oftentimes this might not matter enough, and you just want to hide your cards. So definitely still a fine line to take. But that's just something I wanted to point out. That's a possibility here.
Definitely makes sense in that side, and hey, look, it's final that, Spindle Moon Bastion that you mentioned that you might
Finally,
have you might have wanted before, and it may not even matter because we could have definitely run into a small step giant leap, but in fact, we won't see that
haven't.
played, and we will see a mobile armory come out here for the Lindaway, another low cost, gear this time around for them to play, and some potential for some after use with that Baba's Iswa that they finally got as well, so should be interesting here on this final day potentially to see who can take it and how the realistically how the Tasia has been able to stay in it despite being low on card advantage. I feel like, and almost always feeling like the Linda Way could pop off at any moment and take this
Yeah.
game. So should be interesting to see how this one turns out.
We also haven't seen any moth lanterns yet from this Lindway side, and those are definitely, or especially in these stages of the game, are just looking to double advance, and with the setup from the Asia, where they do really not have a good board going into this turn. A pop of 10 with Moth Lantern might just be what Lindway is looking for, and Chrysalis is also just looking to set up exactly that line of Moth Lantern in play. So this could, depending on what the Tasia now has left, could very well go into a 2 for 0 for the Lindway here.
Yeah, we finally may see the Linda Way be able to capitalize on having card advantage and now potentially specific card advantage in something like a Moth Lantern, like you mentioned before. Especially since at this point, I feel like it is pretty much too late for that Spindle Moon Bastion. I'm sure it would feel nice earlier on for the Tasia player, but at this point, using the 3 mana, having a little bit less mana to work with, and then having to deal with probably a lot of Moth available to the Lindaway, to stop them from taking 2 expeditions is pretty unlikely. So we'll have to see how things turned out. And still that Baba's Isba left to be able to be exhausted by the Linda way to slow things down that much more. So, well,
Yeah.
not ideal for the Tasia as has been the case for the last few days, but hey, that they may be able to surprise us. Who knows?
And looking at, I think playing that Bastion here for the Tasia is not really too beneficial since looking at the discard for the Lindray, we already see 2 off goes and 1 boom. And that's pretty much a 3 out of 5 removals that the boom is effective against. And therefore, this might just not be. Okay, we do
Wow.
see that Mana Reaping come out and taking that Baba Sispa away. And yeah, I think
Interesting
Moth
choice there.
Lantern still. Oh, and we do see another boom already. That is interesting.
They do pull it out, like you mentioned. Not something you necessarily expect, but it does allow that sacrifice to trigger, and it also removes another character there for Tasia. And unless they have something else in hand and able to deal with the maw in a magical way that I'm not aware of, that's likely to be a GG at this point. But we'll just go ahead and wait. I'm not looking at the chat to see if they have said GG or not, but we'll have to see how it goes. Elon guy says this is a master class. It's beautiful. Well, this is because you're just a Linda Way fangirl. So either way, we do see another character pop out here. So technically, we are going 1 for 1 at this point. But with that Baba Yaga, with the Baba's Isba in the discard pile, we will see a 2-0 here for the Lindaway. And they will take this game just through the pure pressure of having so many cards in hand and being eventually able to take this final game.
Yeah, and Keelan in chat mentioning that this game was played with very limited or with pretty much very good resources from both players, but
Mm,
still just that Lindway coming out on top with just using Go so often and so effectively, and yeah, just denying all the resources from this Tasia. I think they got a one resupply off of their Aloys this game, and otherwise very limited resources.
yeah. Always a good way to deny your opponent when possible. Sometimes it feels like you can't, but when you can, go ahead and do it. It's hard to win if you can't play cards. So we are in the Swiss round 4 of the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly, number 10. A lot of good games thus far, including some really good players and some fun deck lists. I even got to see an Arjun win. So
Yeah.
always a good time there. We'll go ahead and take a look to see what we have left here in this Swiss round 4. I will scroll a little bit here to see what we got going on for different players. Not sure what I want to pick. Let's go ahead and go with who have we not jumped in with yet? Um, have we done table 8 people yet? No, right?
Table 8. No.
Okay, so we can jump in there.
Yes.
Table 8, we'll see what we got. Ooh, a gold ring.
When both these players being quite low on elo and two very interesting heroes. So interesting that this is table 8. That's
Yeah.
cool to see.
Yeah, we got some they have won a lot to get here at this point, or at least some. So cool to
Yeah.
see them do well, at least in both of these heroes and lower elo, like you mentioned. So we'll have to see who can take it. It's dead even at this point. And both people seem like they're potentially positioning for a 1 for 1. Or no, it looks like the Sierra is going to try to contest that companion side. Only 1 card left for the goal ring. So a lot left for the Sierra, especially that hooked that we could potentially just have pull over one of those characters for the goal ring. Yeah, we'll have to see what we got.
Yeah, and I expect to see that hooked here now to it's threatening to take double advance here, and well, the last card for the Guru run could change that, but playing that hook now here is probably the best time you can play it, since in tiebreaker this card is basically doing nothing except drawing a card, and now this way you're kind of threatening something, so that Gurung has to play their last card, and yeah, they just hook the one of the recruits over and don't even push something into that lane. And we do see a charge here now, and that is not enough, I believe, for the screw rank here. So the Sierra's taking the game by a single stat line in water, and yeah, that's enough for the advance. So Sierra going, I believe, to 3-1 now, and that's quite good to see.
Yeah, definitely happy to see Sierra do quite well, and they're just going to put a little cherry on top there with an avalanche. Why not? Um, and we'll take this victory. Too bad for the goal ring. Always nice to see goal ring do well if they have an opportunity to do it, but not doing horrible at this point either in the Swiss round four. So glad we were able to watch the end of that game at least. And Sierra taking advantage of the double withered tree setup, not even using brass bug hive at this point. Who needs it? We got trees now for the Axiom hero. Um, so we'll go back here to see if we're gonna watch some more games in the Swiss round 4. Still some left. Um, just a few. I'm gonna go and click on number 37 because why not?
Okay.
And it's already over.
Oh, yeah,
Back we go. Um, what's the next one? 26.
yeah. And this one is Tilly Papu against a Pelviot. Pelviot?
Yep, and we do
I'm
have
not sure.
have a monolith out here for the Sigismar statting everything up, but it may not even matter here. It looks like with the fin just going crazy with all those anchoring.
Oh, yeah, this is.
When
I'm
a
not sure
card,
if this is originally have. I definitely know a paper herald, or maybe even this paper herald from Pee-wee,
yeah,
also a French player, I believe. And this one is anchoring whenever a card leaves the reserve, and yeah, we just see that mass anchored board, and that is quite good to see.
and then
And
The Tinkerbell will anchor something at dusk as well. So that's
yeah,
the
the
entire
other
board.
is doing the same thing, and
Yeah.
that is a super cool list for Fen. And I was trying to build. I was looking for a card like this paper herald for a while, but sadly never found it. But I have a card like this Tinkerbell myself that is anchoring at dusk, and I quite like it. But yeah, that paper herald is definitely the star of this deck.
Yeah, I have a similar card as well in a Kodama that anchors at dusk, and it sleeps itself. So it's pretty good whenever I throw in my Lyra decks. Just toss it in there. Why not? I like anchoring things. So if you got them, use them. But I believe that's close to the end. Maybe one game left. Table 40.
Um,
Yep, table 40. Tasia v Tasia. Oh, and we got a Kohlrabi esque Tasia deck here with the Clute.
Yeah, and one of my teammates has been trying to cook on Tasia. Maybe here
Keeneland. Keeneland.
yeah, maybe we see that on our Thursdays for the boss spell. I'm not sure, but we have been speculating or joking that we might want to lose on Thursday our boss battle. So I was just joking. Let Keelan cook it with his list, and that's most likely gonna end up as loss. But maybe Keelan's list is just good enough, and he wins that.
Yeah, could be, but we will see that top Asia here take this final game, um, in dominant fashion it looks like, but, we weren't here enough to know for sure. Either way,
Mm.
we'll go ahead and go into round 5 of the Swiss. It looks like some folks are talking about their local Tumult championships in the chat. Rune, is there any particular hero that you think you would take to a Tumult championship?
Yeah, I would love to play Varu, of course, but if I'm going to a Tumult Championship, I would want to win, and I know that my matchup into Sigismar is quite bad, and with Void, I know I have definitely one very potent Sigismar player at my Tumult Championships, and also Pandy is coming over this weekend actually to Berlin to play
Hmm,
our first Tumult Championships here in Berlin. And yeah, then I can Penny is bringing Sigisma, so I can play Varu. Also, I don't have the uniques, but I am looking to play Fen in my
hmm.
championships since I do have the uniques for that one, and Fen is looking to be a strong hero. So yeah, I'm trying my best on that one.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good idea. Always cool to see what people are bringing to their own championships. If you have something different that you are going to bring, or if you had experiences thus far, feel free to share them in the chat, like some other folks have been doing thus far. I personally don't know what I'm going to take yet. Uh, I I can I have like a solid like Sigismar deck list, but I almost don't want to take it because I know no one at my locals runs Afanis very much, and I just want to play Sigismard to beat Afanis a lot of the time. um, but
Yeah, yeah.
so past that, I don't know. I may go to the Bravo side of things potentially just to do that because I actually think it's an okay matchup against Sigismar sometimes, especially if there are going to be some other Sigismar players at my local. So I don't know. We'll see. Haven't decided yet. Don't have me set for one thing or another, but definitely some options. But either way, we are in the Swiss round 5 at this point of the AWOL Season 2 Monday weekly number 10. I am Blue. You can catch me at Blue Oak TV on YouTube and in other places, but mostly YouTube. Please subscribe to me. And joining me today is Runefolk. Why don't you can tell the people where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me also on you can find me only on Twitch or Discord. You can find me that then write me a nice message. That's always appreciated. But on Twitch, I'm Runefolk, and you can also find me there pretty much every Thursday for the AQZ Championships. There I'm casting together with a Pandy, Keelan guy, and Freeloader. So we have 4 people there, and yeah, that's always a lot of fun.
Nice. And we will go to only 7 undefeated players here left. Interestingly enough, we did see Cledus drop that last round, so not currently in the undefeated setup here, which is a bit of a surprise on occasion. But they must have run into someone quite good. So I don't know. What are you thinking here in the top tables? Do you want to take a look at those? Is there another one later on that we should take a look at before we get into these final 2 Swiss rounds? I don't really
I
have a preference.
I kind of want to look at table 3 with Epsilon, who took down Cladusa in the previous round, and Altered Aces Neuro, who I haven't seen in a while on do perform well on these online tournaments. I think I've seen them the last times on rather cheesy decks with Arjun. Maybe
Mhm,
they're still on that, but I think Neuro was also just running some Sigisma lists as well.
mhm.
So being on undefeated so far, I
Yeah.
would expect maybe seeing more of a Sigisma deck this time around.
Actually, we're gonna see a good old-fashioned Basira list.
Oh, I
Like
love that. Yeah. Okay. I'm already glad to be on this one, and I really want to see what type of deck list Nira is running here with Basira, since I've been cooking myself, and I have been playing Yeti once last week. You've seen that on my Basira list, but
Mhm.
I actually already have cut it from my list since I don't think it's actually too good. But this
Yeah.
is definitely a setup for Basira that I like, having that Kilan cylinder, having that Yeti, and also now the Tiny Giant ramp. Definitely the deck I already enjoy a lot.
Yeah. So if anyone is not aware what Yeti does, because we don't see it very often, from hand, you may gain a sleep. And when another character joins your expeditions, go ahead and give it a boost. But guess what? Tiny Gel. which really doesn't make sense for a big Yeti, you would think, right? Like, how does it
Yeah.
fit in a tiny jail? But for some reason, it also works against the rare Atlas in Ortis as well. So just really not fair. We should be able to apply like Yu-Gi-Oh anime logistics to some of these cards where it's too big and so you can't actually use it. But either way, we'll have to see how this turns out. Not the best start here for Neuro on the Basira, but they're going to go ahead and boost up that Tiny Gen, give it an additional boost so that way that they can go just enough over that token. We'll have to see if Sigmar has another one cost that they want to play or if they're just happy with the one for one.
Yeah, and I this Audis Trooper is I remember this one still from a list that Gladys was once running, but it
Mhm.
seems like it's rather an Epsilon card since I've seen it twice been played and it wasn't from Gladius. But
Yeah.
yeah,
He did mention it in his interview that he got it, so maybe he's just sharing it. I don't know, or if he might have traded for
yeah.
it. Who knows? I'm not quite sure, but it is quite a good card as far as being able to produce tokens and draw all for 2 cost. Who doesn't like something like that? But we do end up getting the one for one here, and we will have Nero on the Basira down a little bit on the Tumult. So we'll have to see if they can come back here. They will have an opportunity to potentially sabotage that cadets, which I'm sure they will take the opportunity to do if they can. But we may also just see some other cards coming out here. We're only on 7 mana for them, and it'll be 6 mana for the Sigmar player.
And I really like the uniques for Nuru. There are two Osmos and one Lyra Navigator. The Navigator being the more boring card, it's just a 3/3 that's getting some boosts and drawing a card on play. But the Osmos are very nice. They are just at dusk. If it has boosts, draw a card, and when it leads the expedition or when it goes to reserve, draw a card. So these Osmos are looking to draw two cards whenever they are played, and we do see that first one right now already. And yeah, you can take a look at it on screen now. It's quite nice.
Yep, and so we'll see Neuro automatically use that Basir ability to give it those 2 boosts to be able to utilize some draw, as Runefolk mentioned, and everyone can see it on the screen here. I'll try to hold it open as much as possible. And it is the when I leave the expedition zone, if I have 2 or more boosts, draw a card. At dusk, if I have 2 or more boosts, draw a card. So not too bad for 2 mana when you can draw twice. Of course, this also does mean that you can't let your opponent get too far ahead, especially when you're dealing with the Sigismar. Those drawn cards may not help too much, but we'll have to see how things turn out here. Still plenty of mana left for both heroes, and we will go ahead and see a common mana eruption come out of Neuro here, utilizing that extra mana that they already had to get rid of that unique cadets.
Interestingly enough, the draw for Nuru seemed to have not been too great, so they felt forced to play that mana option already. And yeah, it's quite unfortunate, but yeah, at this point, if you're already up one mana for Basira, mana advantage is definitely nice, but it's not too necessary as for Kojo can play a lot better with the mana advantage, I feel like.
Mm,
But for Basira, you oftentimes just can use it as kind of card advantage, and yeah, that's how I like using my mana advantage in Basira. But
definitely.
with these draw uniques, you can maybe even utilize that mana advantage a lot more than I'm used to in Basira.
Yeah. What do you think about the Kelon cylinder within the Basira? I've seen some lists use it and some lists focus on more just the Haven itself. Do you use it in your list? Do you like it? What are your thoughts?
I do really like this card. Yes, it's it's just getting so much. For Basira, you don't have too many ways to resupply, and if you don't have any characters in reserve and you only have these havens, it feels so weird to play out characters and get boosts onto them, and that Killen Cylinder just allows you to play it much better. And you might have seen my list. I really like these. Um, I really like these giant lists and getting
Mm,
boosts onto them when played from hand. That is just amazing. Interestingly enough, there was a tiny gel used onto the Serengar instead of the Ozma, and that Ozma is now drawing an additional card at dusk. So a slight misplay, I'd say, from the Sigismar here, just giving the Basira an additional card. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're still ahead, so it's
Yeah,
fine.
still ahead, but I guess, yeah, you're right. If you can give your opponent that many cards less, to potentially beat you with, you're probably gonna wanna do it. But, either way, still looking pretty good here for the Sigismar. I have to imagine as a Viscera player, you're probably not excited to run into a Sigismar deck list that can move fairly quickly, but we'll have to see how it turns out here for Neuro. They have made it this far, doing quite well, so definitely has some merit to it, especially with those uniques that are able to draw quite a lot. But yeah, I know I definitely like the keel on cylinder a lot. I've also recently with my Basira list been trying to test out rare Saringer, just to try it out for the additional boosts, and I like the idea because the uniques I run, a lot of them have the ability of to activate a effect. I put a card in reserve, and so I try to utilize that a lot with different cards. And I just like the idea of having a 5/2/2 Saringer kind of thing for 2
Yeah.
costs, and occasionally a 6/3/3 if I have a Haven Bravos Bastion out. So, um, I've been messing with it. So the fact that I have them in rare slots, though, is the idea that I definitely have more rare slots to use, because I definitely don't need to have them there. Yeah, but, either way, we will see that, unique navigator that you mentioned that just has some boosts and draws a card on their own, and it looks pretty because it has very little text.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. And also no supportability. It feels quite weak, but actually as a 3 cost 2/4 is decent. It's not the best, but drawing the card definitely helps very much in a lot of decks. And together with Basira, if this is played alone, it's a 3/5. So actually that's pretty solid for a 3 cost.
Yeah, definitely works out. Um, we will see that Saringer, get earlier on exhausted by the Jack Frost. We can still see that Ozma come out, but I don't know if Neuro on the Basira wants to risk putting out a lower statted card just to get some more draw, especially with Sigismar on the precipice of potentially winning this game with a 2-0 here on this day. So only 4 mana left per player. Got to be aware that we may run into a chance for the Sigismar to take it, especially with any type of removal, like a teamwork training potentially. But they're going to go ahead and throw out the Ozma and leave themselves with just 2 mana left.
And interestingly enough, that Osma now didn't get any boosts, so I'd expect to see either a Fire Rabbit or a Chiron from hand as well for the Spacira to. I don't expect you would play this Osma without getting the draws. So yeah, Chiron or Fire Rabbit are likely to be played together with this, and they are just waiting to see on which expeditions they want to play these cards on. I'd
Or
imagine.
or who knows, maybe we'll see a fire rabbit and a sow. You never know.
Yeah,
But I'm guessing not. Either way, we will see the one cost Foundry mechanic come out here for the Sigismar player, slowing it down as much as possible. Seeing what Neuro has left here, I have to imagine we're likely looking at only one more card to be played. So the Sigismar will have an open field to decide if they can get that 2-0 potentially. And so we'll have to see if Neuro is going to prioritize one side and just hope that they can get the one for one for now.
and we do see that it's a little bit tapped now. So, and yeah, there's the Chiron, and they are looking to probably just win on that hero expedition. I
Mhm.
think there's not much they can do about that one for one. There are tools to remove something, and they'd have to play another character alongside it. But yeah, actually, removal plus a trooper could be game winning here for the Sigismar.
Yeah, we will see the Basira boost. I think they were actually trying to determine if it would be better to still do it, and I think in just about every case, you're still going to want to get those 2 boosts on the Ozma. And if the Sigmar has the cards to beat you, they have the cards to beat you. But at least in this case, you're getting more draw, and it won't be the case. Sigmar is just going to save it, be happy with the one for one, let him have that draw, and try to go into the next day and in the game.
Yeah, and Nero was already saying GG in the chat, but was then confused about just seeing the pass, and is getting to draw 2 cards now, so is looking quite nice for the next day. I don't imagine this Lyra Navigator stick around in the reserve since it's maybe just a bit too expensive and not really blocking on the right expeditions. So yeah, we see that being discarded, and both players now going into this last round. The Basira is 1 card ahead, and you rarely see that in a Basira against Sigismar. But yeah, of course, the Sigismar is ahead in expeditions, so the Basira now has to find a way to come back into this game and find a winning line, or
Yeah.
a or going into tiebreaker even.
Yeah, luckily for the Basira, they do still have one counter left on that Kelon cylinder, and I was about to say, like, the Occlute is definitely a good play here that we can just have resources reduced for the Sigismar, getting that double exhaust out. It does cost that 4 mana, so you can't necessarily play any slower, and they'll have to work the remaining 4 mana and hope that the, Sigismar doesn't have anything to deal with you as far as the Clute's concerned. Tiny Jail does not work on uh, the big cow, so
Yeah,
we'll have to see what else that they can come up with.
I don't know how I should feel about Aklud being a cow, but yeah.
It has the colors and stuff. I don't know.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
I mean, it makes sense. Like, look how big it is in comparison to the person next to it, right? Like,
That is true, yeah.
there's no way Tiny Jill should work on it, but, we will
Yeah.
see the slow play here from Neuro on the Bravos Blade Dancer. Another cool card. I don't know if a lot of if every Basira uses the Blade Dancer still, it's definitely a worthwhile card, but I know sometimes not everyone wants to use it, but, cool to see. We
Yeah,
will
I'm definitely not running it, but
yeah.
it's still a nice card, and it's a 2 of only in the deck, so not that 3 of. And I like these slow plays here from the Basira.
Yeah, kind of forcing the Sigismar to try to do the same. They only have 2 cards left in hand, which is still plenty for them to figure it out. They could have a removal and another 2 cost, but it looks like it'll just be a 3 cost Ozma that comes out here. That lets you, if you control a token, draw a card, and if you control a token up to 1 target character gains a sleep, you may have it gain 2 boosts, and that's kind of like a backbreaker there, especially for the Occlute, and
Yeah.
having to stop them in both expeditions.
Yeah, and I think that sleep is most likely just enough, and I don't see a way to beat out that rock and that hero side at the same time for 2 mana. So, well, there might be a way with 2 more 1 costs from hand for this Basira, but that seems quite unlikely.
Yeah, especially after already tapping the hero ability and using that boost. Does not seem like that'll be the case. I think Neuro definitely did the most ideal play, but sometimes you just run into some sleeping abilities from those Sigismar players, whether it's from a unique or even from that out of faction Sandman that we do see on occasion. So either way, good job by Neuro being able to take Basira thus far. Um, to this point, but Sigismar, dominant hero, taking this one just off of pure force, and even after all that draw, Basira not able to take this game.
Yeah, and now, yeah, it's just a Sigma win, yeah. I
Neuro
would
just
have
deciding where
loved
that
to
boost is going.
see, Nero go onto the final round,
Yeah,
perhaps even, but, yeah, unfortunately, getting stopped here by that Sigismar.
unfortunate indeed, but doing quite well thus far. Maybe we'll get through to the point of only getting one loss for this tournament, but we'll have to see how that turns out. Um,
There actually was a Basira before that went to 6 wins in these 7-round tournaments. and I can check real quick who that was since I don't quite remember. But I really um, it was cool to see there was at least one well performing other serialist, and it was the Gubitz last few, on week 7 in the
Gotcha.
series, and actually also had drawing Osmas like Neurohead.
Makes sense. We are in the Swiss round 5 at this point, and we are participating in the AWOL season 2 Monday weekly number 10. Once again, thank you for everyone that has joined us. It's been some good games for us to take a look at, including a little Basira game there at the last point. Still a few games left going on in the current round that we can take a look at. Um, let's see what we got going here, just to make sure that we can maybe see people that we haven't seen. Table 20, I think, maybe. It's a
Okay.
Kojo mirror matchup. Um,
Oh,
and both of them have a Haven Bravos Bastion out. A unique Ozma, speaking of Ozmas, available. If you control one or more landmarks, go ahead and draw a card. So, not too bad there. And with that end of the day, we will go back to dead even.
Circus is definitely a name I recognize, and they've actually only played or finished two tournaments that went on to 39 cards, but actually they won one of the AWOL Mondays already on Asia, and now trying their luck with coaches. So that seems to be a player that's switching it up a bit, since the other record they have on 39 cards is Afanas. And yeah, I was joking about getting an 39 cards entry with every hero. Last set I was on every faction, but yeah, Freeloader is taking that challenge. And yesterday Freeloader got his entry with Sabesh, going I think into top 8 in an ace yesterday. So yeah, Freeloader's taking my challenge, since I'm not really playing too many tournaments anymore, and just be casting these.
Yeah, we'll have to get you back into some tournaments eventually. We want people complaining about you delaying the game some more often. So
Yeah,
we can't let people get off too easily just by putting you in the commentary desk. But we do see a snowman come out here for the Kojo. It's actually one of the cards that you don't I don't see very often, but I've considered multiple times putting in my Kojo list because I think it's really good. I just have trouble finding the rare slot available into my Kojo list before to get it in there, but I really want to try it out at some point. I don't know what your thoughts are about the card as a whole.
I've tried it a few times already.
Mhm,
I also really like the card. It's just a really nice overstated card, and I sadly only own one copy of it. So whenever I can play it, I only have it once in my deck, and I prefer it as two copies in my deck. But yeah, I definitely really like the card. It's feeling very strong in the early games and also in the late games, when you're able to just play it twice and threaten to take two progressions. It's
mhm.
it's it's, it's looking nice.
Yeah, and we do see that second one come out here for the bottom Kojo. Is that exhausted resupply support ability ever something you utilize, or mostly just the stat ability?
I think these stats are just a lot better than the rest of the card. And
Mhm,
if there's now a tiny gen for this Kojo, it's a game, but unfortunately it's not.
yeah.
Or maybe fortunately, I don't know who you're rooting for here.
Yeah. But, we will see all 3 cards there go to the reserve for the Kojo on the bottom. We'll get rid of one of the snowmen, opting for the resupply ability of the rare Salvager instead. And, yep, Buddha turn for the top Kojo, though, so we'll have to see if that gives them the advantage, but notably, they have no cards in the reserve to be able to utilize that Haven.
Yeah, they do have Milk, which is arguably doing something similar to the Haven, but definitely the bottom Kojo having kind of a bit more resources, maybe with that Salvager. to get 3 cards that get the Haven boost no matter where the characters are played, and probably if they decide to mana only 1 card from hand, which isn't the greatest, but yeah, if you have 3 plays from reserve, this might still just be enough. But you might want to consider not maning here, since there's potential sabotage onto that
Mm.
Salvager, and that would pretty much be game probably, being forced to only play 2 cards. But seeing that first play of Arcolano Milk, I'm not fearing a sabotage anymore, so the coach is instantly going to play out that Salvager and resupplies a unique.
Yeah, the Tomo Gozen, that's not the typical huge statted Tomo Gozens that we are typical to see, but 3/3/1, 3 costs from hand in reserve. You may discard a permanent from anywhere, and it cannot be played if you have less than 7 mana orbs, so it can be played here. It also has a support ability to give the next character you play this turn a boost. But in turn, we will see a unique Chiron from the top Kojo that gives target character 2 boosts, and if you control 1 or more landmarks, sabotage. So there's that sabotage that you mentioned before, kind of a little bait and switch to make the bottom Kojo think that they didn't have one, just in order to get that Arcolano milk out early.
Yeah, and that's kind of surprising. I would have expected that just instantly sabotaging that Salvager would have been probably better, since you're limiting that bottom Kojo to 2 cards. But they thought otherwise, and they still got a sabotage off. They were always getting to see that sabotage, but yeah, that spy sadly is not getting to sabotage anything, and bottom Kojo already having to use that because that last card in a hand for this Kojo is threatening to just take the game,
Mhm.
and they feel forced to play that. So yeah, maybe that last card can still do something into this, but getting 3 stats for 3 cost
Yeah.
seems like a Tomo turn for me, or maybe also a Pathfinder.
Yeah, definitely a possibility here, but if they don't have it, the bottom Kojo not looking too bad either, because even though they didn't get the sabotage off of the spy, interestingly enough, that unique Chiron that was played earlier will have fleeting due to that Arcolano milk, so will not be able to be played. So the top Kojo will not have any cards available, and the bottom Kojo will have the spy that they can play from reserve with a Buddha turn in the arena that's going to get boosted up a lot. So they did not have anything for 3 costs, and all of a sudden, it's looking quite okay for that bottom Kojo.
That's actually true, yeah. And now I would expect neither player to mana, other
Yeah.
unless they have maybe Chiron into Fire Rabbit and Tiebreaker. That would go, if there's no removal, that would pretty much always be winning. But seeing that is rather rare, and not too many players are playing Kybra's in their lists, but definitely from Jathan Smith or something from Wednesday Airwards, they are running Kybra's in their coach list, and I enjoy that. I sadly lost to them, since their Kybra was just bigger than my Kybra, but when do you see Kybra on Kybra action in a tournament?
You don't, and honestly, you gotta pay extra for that kinda stuff normally, so, whale
Yeah.
on whale action does not usually come cheap, and I'm glad you're able to participate that in that, but, we do see a mana eruption going to hit, more than likely that spy, I'd have to imagine, to get rid of the stats, but plenty of mana left for both players, 2 cards apiece, now it's just deciding who's gonna get the most stats out on the board. Milk coming out, another mana eruption for the other for the other Kojo. Makes me wonder if that's one of the cards that they had earlier that they were thinking about playing, and why not throw out a Tiny Jin? Probably not the ideal cards that the bottom Kojo was looking for, but the top Kojo had
Yeah.
absolutely nothing better, and bottom
When
Kojo will take it.
there's nothing to be played in Tiebreaker, that is brutal. I'd imagine if there's a lot of, well, not too many cards, but definitely a Tomoe would have won that tiebreaker here alone, and that is quite funny. Seeing a tiebreaker end like that is, I think I've seen a tiebreaker end or a day before the tiebreaker, a board end up with 0 stats on the board. That was also quite funny once, but yeah, you don't often get to see that.
Yeah, I think I've seen the weirdest ones I've seen is like an individual stat from a single character win a tiebreaker before because the other person just had no characters, but yeah, it's, can be pretty weird. I believe that is the end of the round, maybe not. Nope, still got some games going, for Swiss round 5 here. Once again, wanna thank everyone that's joining us. We do have 1 game left here on table 2. It looks like it's pretty close to being done potentially, but we'll take a look. It is a Trace versus an Afanas, so we have an
Ooh,
undefeated Trace here,
that
trying to
is
make it.
interesting.
They are quite low on time though, so I wonder if that will come into effect here, but they are ahead on the board. But 5 mana left though for the Afanas.
And it's a trace that's looking to play off of Havens. There's no Ouroboroses in the discard. There are a bunch of Iceborne Peaks, and that Traceless being here on top and almost beating Tempetalanesh is super impressive. I really like what I'm seeing, and this really seems to threaten the game win, and I'm not too sure what Tempet could have here to beat that Trace. And now I'm impressed and want to see this Trace list on the next table.
Uh-oh, giving Runefolk ideas here as far as the traceless here, but, we will see the Beauty Sleep come out here from reserve. It will cost 3 mana though, so we'll see who they're gonna target. It looks like I mean, do you target the dragon here? No, you have to target the other side, right?
Yeah, I don't think there's a
Oh, yeah.
way for,
Yeah, they're targeting the dragon,
yeah,
but that's just gonna make it more difficult to get up to the forest stat on that side, isn't it? We'll have to
yeah,
see. They can't play the helping hand, that's not gonna do enough. I don't know what else they have in hand that could actually help them here.
yeah. That's a good question. I also don't know.
Maybe there was nothing and they just wanted to play what they had, but, don't tell me that they're gonna try to time it out.
Oh, that might actually be what's going to happen here. Yeah, that Joyride is maybe also not enough. And
Or
now I'm interested to see if this goes to timeout. Now I want to see this. But we do see the GGs. A lot of people writing GG, not only the two players, but a bunch of other ones. So maybe a few players have been spectating this and having have gotten to see this Trace beat up this Aphanos, and that's quite cool. I would have also enjoyed to see that earlier on, but maybe we can get to see this
Yeah,
next
we're
round.
gonna be on the top tables, and guess what? We have a trace in the top tables. And William H, thanks for the subscribe. I just saw that notification, so I'm glad the subscriptions are working. And always nice to have some more people joining the AWOL streams and getting to watch regularly. We are coming into the next round of the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 10. This will be the Swiss round number 6. We have currently 4 undefeated players left, so the perfect amount, and we will have 1 undefeated winner at the end of this. No odd numbers for us. And like you said, do you just want to go ahead and take a look at the trace that's coming
Yeah,
in here? Is that table
I
2?
would have loved to. Yeah, yeah,
I don't think we've watched
this
Nico yet either, so that should work out.
yeah. I remember them. I think as Muna or Tasia players, but I'm so I'll yeah. I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Either way, it's cool to see potentially a Muna versus Trace matchup here in the final four. And not the Sigismar Ephanis, which may be table one. I didn't really look.
Yeah,
But we'll switch over here and we'll go ahead and start with the Tasia versus the Trace that we saw just take out an Ephanis. And not just any ordinary Ephanis, uh, a quite good Ephanis, if I don't mind
yeah.
saying so. So we will see a unique Frog Prince go to reserve, and it just has a support ability of you may activate the Anywhere ability of target permanent you control. No other text. It's so pretty.
I think this might be played as an additional Amelia, and it's a bit better when played from hand. But maybe it's also just there for the supportability. Also, this card looks super clean.
Yeah,
Just the supportability, nothing else.
yeah,
Really clean.
yeah. I've bought a Ordis Trooper exactly for the reason of it just had a support ability. I'm never gonna use it, but it's fun to have either way.
Yeah.
What do we got in the chat here? Classic Cole. He's probably doing something. He hates the stream. Try harder. And other people like the stream. That's good to hear. Good thing we don't care about Cole's opinion. Um, he gets a pass because it's blue. It's true. We both can ridicule each other constantly. And I never bully anyone. That's true. It's very good. I I have not explicitly threatened to break your legs. Just
Not explicitly. Okay.
just I've inferred it
Mm.
on occasion, but not explicitly. But either way, let's go and watch the actual game. We got a undefeated matchup here between a Traced and a Tasia. Who would have thought I would ever say that in the round 6 of the Swifts for this AWOL weekly on Monday?
Yeah, I mean, if this was set one, this would maybe be something you'd say a bit more often, but yeah, now it's set two. You haven't seen too many traced perform well, and I think one of the few ones that we've seen, oh, maybe two of the few ones that we've seen perform regularly on traced are Freeloader and Popiet. Actually, also last week there was another player, Yitherin, that was
Mm.
also running a quite nice list of traced on the, I think it was our AQZ championships.
Simon, why are you saying that there's that list? We're watching a Traced undefeated. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. um, I was like, words. But yeah, so we do have Tasia versus a Trace here as some of the undefeated players. It does look like the Trace does have an option here to just go one for one if they so choose. We'll have to see if the Tasia decides to even play anything here, or if they're just going to opt to hold on to, or maybe even anchor that Thespian that they have that is currently 333, which might not be a bad option, or that they may want to. Who knows? I don't, but we'll have to figure out what they decide to do here.
Yeah, the starting hand for this Nico currently not looking too good when you have to play a Thespian on turn two without having anything anchored, and seeing that Ogun go alongside it, I'd expect now to see that support ability be used on that
Mhm.
Thespian. But yeah, this is currently looking. I wasn't expecting to see that go this side, since Keelan Elemental onto Hero would have been a 1 for 0, and this is now a trade. So that is kind of confusing. Yeah, not used
Yeah.
to see that on the top tables.
Yeah,
But yeah,
maybe they just thought they saw something immediately there and didn't really think about it, potential misplay, but we'll have to figure that out here shortly. 2 counters on the Traced. They have the possible option if they hit the right resupplies here. I would have to imagine to hit 5 counters, at least 4 counters potentially. But we'll have to see if that is actually the case. Have to
yeah,
imagine, even though the trace deck lists have changed, the quicker that you can hit those 5 counters, the better. But we'll have to see if that is the case for them. They do have to deal with that 333 Thespian that got left out there due to the anchoring ability of the Moon of Druid, and we'll potentially see some other characters get boost with the plants as far as the Ogun, even though Thespian is not in fact a plant. They should have the ability, there should be like some card where you can convert or change a character into a plant or something. I don't know.
yeah.
They do it in other card
Maybe in some
games.
yeah, maybe in some future sets as well.
Uh, We'll have to see. But we will see another plant come out here in the Sneezer Shroom in the common version.
It's not another plant, it's the first plant of the game, I think, even. So
Mm,
and we do get that Icebound Peak already. And that Icebound Peak, when resupplied, just playing it for two feels so much nicer than playing it from hand as the 3 cost. But it's still looking quite hard for this Trace here to even get a single expedition if they're deciding to play that Icebound. And now not taking that 1 for 0 lead last turn is looking to be a bit punishing.
yeah, we will see a
But
unique caregiver come out here. If you control 2 or more plants other than me, up to 1 target character with hand cost 3 or less gains anchored. Uh, when they gain one or more boosts. So it is one of those boost based anchoring uniques. And then from reserve, it also gives two characters each gain one boost. So that can be quite good if you have the right amount of plants available to you.
Quite good. I'd say this is probably one of the best mass anchoring uniques I've seen. A one cost from hand for mass anchoring, and a two cost that's just on play when you already have two plants anchored, that you're just anchoring three of your characters again immediately. That seems just crazy.
Got to run into the plants though. You might not have the plants. Right now they
Yeah,
only have one
and
plant.
currently they don't have the plans, so that is looking quite bad for them. But other than that, this unique is looking super strong in my opinion.
And it's interesting too because in a lot of scenarios, I feel like you almost would like the thespian over potentially the sneezer shroom with the amount of boost that you can get onto it. But with that anchoring unique, you're definitely keeping that sneezer shroom available to you. But we will see a Haven pop out and hit into an
Hmm.
Amelia Earhart. Quite good setup here. They can play all three cards from the reserve at this point. We will see a trace all countered up at the for it. Now the question is, can they deal with that anchoring unique? And did the Tasia run into that second plant that they definitely need?
If there's an alloy here now, this is looking good for the Tasia, going with that Sneasel Shroom plus alloy to next turn and getting the re-anchors of that Muna Caregiver. But
Mm.
also this Trace has a very nice turn playing all three cards, getting two counters already on that Icebound Peak for the Dragon Pop next turn, and this also getting that hero ability. So ending the turn most likely with two cards in reserve is just very nice for the Stressed at this point. And we
And
do see
there,
that alloy.
sure enough, we do see the Alvera come out. So ideal draw for the Tasia. And honestly, I was probably expecting it because they modded pretty gosh darn quick on this day. Pretty good setup here. The Trace will have to deal with it. They will have to, they will get an advance here. I think they were hoping that the Tasha didn't run into anything too good, so that way they didn't have to use potentially the, Amelia Earhart here and could just instead advance with the Salvager and get a resupply, but they'll have to use the Amelia Earhart, hit the 5 counters, get a counter on that Icebound Peak, and, move on to the next day and have to deal with those gosh darn plants.
Yeah, and already a bit sad. I think I already know where this game will go, and I already think this Tasia will just play that Muna Kagavan. Nothing will ever leave this reserve, and I'm already sad for this Traced. I would have loved to see this Traced, but that Muna Kagavan is just looking way too strong now with getting two re-anchors here.
Yeah, the only difference would have been is if we were going into a, traced first turn and they may have drawn into a sabotage potentially, but,
Yeah.
they don't even have that option at this point, and with a Ogun hitting the reserve, there's even more boosts for things to potentially get anchored with, not that they need it at this point, but, oh boy, it's definitely trending one way, as you mentioned, but we'll have to see what the Trace can come up with. They definitely have the possibility to take one expedition, especially if they activate that Icebound Peak. But past that, some future days are going to be quite difficult.
The positive is that it's looking like there's no way to anchor this Muna Caregiver this turn. So we might get rid of the mass anchoring for now. But in a second, I should get a look at the list from Tasia and see if there are more mass anchoring uniques in there. So, but I would definitely expect if you're seeing one crazy mass anchoring card like this, there would definitely be more on this list.
Yeah, and yeah, technically mushrooms are not plants, but in the game of Altered, too bad.
Yeah.
They are indeed fungus, but or fungi, but we all can't be fun
There's
guys. Either way, we'll see what the Tasia has here, and you're taking a look at the deck list.
There's there's one other mass anchoring unique that is not, I'd say not as crazy as this one. It's a 3/2 cost, so the cost is a bit worse. But it's also whenever a character gains a boost, and it's giving a target character a boost when played from hand. So Yeah, that's also decent, I'd say.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, we do get the traceability activated here, and they'll send something to the reserve. Question is at this point, what do they want to do with that dragon? Because I'm guessing we'll more than likely see it this day. Um, and just when they're going to activate it and get things set up. Interestingly enough, we do see a rare bike in the Trace Reserve. Don't often see the rare version of bike that often, I feel like, but if you have a way to utilize it, definitely can be fun. And oh, we get to see a second Icebound Peak hit the
Ooh, that
reserve.
is that is interesting. I'm really hoping that there's a way for the Strays to beat this one. And actually, it's looking okay-ish. They can definitely trade this turn
Hmm.
with that dragon, and also already setting up, most likely setting up 2 counters for that next dragon.
Hmm.
But now playing that second bastion here for
Yep.
now, and I maybe would have preferred the next turn, but I'm not too sure at this point. I'm just rooting for the Strays and want to see these mass anchoring uniques fall.
Yeah, I think everyone's kind of rooting for the underdog a little bit. Want to see the Traced in the finals, but we'll have to see what they can pull out here. They definitely have the cards available to them to potentially make it work. We do see that Thespian come out that will get anchored after getting the boost, so it's just another statted character that even after the potential trade here, which will still be quite difficult for the Trace. Will it's not looking the best at the moment. More than likely, looking at giving up a good amount of advancing on the following day, and realistically, they can only give up one if they trade this turn. So, oof, not looking pretty. But we're going to go ahead and see the dragon come out here. Just a matter of where they're going to put it and how we're going to get things set up here with these two Haven boosts.
Yeah, I think just it might not even matter which side they play their elemental on. I think it would most of the time always just win
Mhm.
that one expedition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. I think they were kinda hoping that they might be able to work a way to not let the opponent advance, but at this point, there's just too many stats on the board, and they'll just take the companion side, do another one for one, and we will go into the game here with another Icebound Peak being played, so we'll go ahead and get rid of one of the Havens, I have to imagine, and they're just gonna try to hopefully contend here despite having a large amount of stats on the board for the Tasia.
Yeah. And I do like the choice of keeping that Icebound Peak over that Haven here. Just getting that dragon and hopefully trading one more turn. But if there's no mass anchoring or in general no anchoring card for the Stager coming up here, this if there is a way to trade for this Strays here, they might be in a fine spot. So this is a crucial turn for both players here that's likely going to decide the game. Either it's just a 2-0 Tasia, or I I might just favor that traced already.
Yeah. Interestingly enough, the Tasia decides not to mana, and we will see a unique Isenboshi that does have a anchoring ability of when a character you control gains one or more boosts, up to one target character with hand cost 3 or less, other than me, gains anchored. So of all the cards that, Trace was hoping that Tasia did not run into, this was probably one of them, and, even if they can get the trade on the one for one, which seemed like it was definitely a possibility this day, it's not looking too hot for the following day and the adjacent matchup.
I just learned in our AQZ team chat that we missed the opportunity to see a second Arjun today, since
Hmm.
a freeloader took my challenge with getting a 39 cards entry with every hero a bit too serious and was today on Argent. So we do see that second mass anchoring unique, our third mass anchoring unique that I was talking a bit earlier about. And yeah, this even if there's a trade this turn, everything is anchored, and I think a third board like this without a dragon, the tracer will likely not be able to contest. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's unfortunate, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, Tasia just drew the cards that they needed at this point, and we'll get things anchored, including those mass anchoring uniques. They'll go ahead and throw out another card to be able to resupply with the frozen delivery, and realistically, throw out any character that they want to activate the dragon. That will be able to help them go one for one. I don't know if the Tasia has anything else left for one cost, but realistically, they can probably just be happy with, getting the one for one and then coming into the following day with both of their mass anchoring uniques, and even if the Trace is able to find something crazy in the following day to go one for one and get into an arena, you're you're not gonna feel good, going up against this Tasia. So,
Yeah,
looking pretty dire at this point.
yeah, definitely. And
Either way, still
seeing this still do that well into a pretty optimal list in this set makes me hope that actually Traced might not be as weak as people expect, and this looked very strong. So I might see some potential for this. Still, I think one of the weaknesses for Trace is, especially now with these havens, you lost your uniques that actually do anything. So I'm not too sure what kind of uniques you would run now.
yeah,
Probably still just resupply ones, since getting your ice bounce
yeah.
proc is quite nice. But yeah, this trace is also making it work even without crazy uniques, since that we've only seen one, and that is just an additional Amelia. So that's kind of good to see for the future of Traced.
Yeah, definitely, especially with, like, realistically, the Asia hitting a pretty good line with all their uniques and everything. We
Yeah,
are in round 6 and, going into round 7 here shortly, the final round, and hello to Trebstar. Greetings indeed. Watching some fun Trace gameplay. Both of these players are undefeated, believe it or not. They are one of the 4 undefeated players here in round 6, and we will likely see this Tasia take the victory and go to the finals of round 7 of the Swifts here shortly. I'll be curious to see if the Trace just decides to play it out. It looks like they will, just to see what they have. We will see one of those uniques that you mentioned of the Foundry Engineer, both from reserve effects of next permanent you play this afternoon, cost 2 less, and you may put a card from your hand in reserve. If you do, you may discard target permanent. So definitely could be a good card in the right hands. So we'll
yeah.
just
Uh,
yeah.
this card is quite cool, and this synergizes decently well with what this trace is trying to do in getting out um, your Iceborne peaks, and you can put those into reserve and play them for 2 less. So that is a very nice combination. So you can basically play your Icebornes kind of for free or get an additional body alongside it. And yeah, but for now, Tasia doing Tasia things and anchoring everything they see. But for stats, this trace is still looking somewhat decent to put up with these stats, and might still just make it into tiebreaker. But in tiebreaker, I'm quite sure they will just lose.
Yeah. So still impressive nonetheless, like you mentioned that they're able to do what they can here. And like I mentioned earlier, not looking ideal for the tiebreaker, but they will be able to in fact make it, assuming that
Yeah,
Tasia doesn't have anything crazy here for one cost. Um, not crazy. I mean, they could just have more boosting, but you know what I mean. We could definitely just see a one for one here, and just see the final tiebreaker with a traced here in the end of round 6, playing up against a Tasia that has hit all 3 of those mass anchoring uniques at this point.
Yeah, that is just a way too strong setup, I'd say, for a lot of decks to beat. And with that Beauty Sleep looking to take the game already this day. And I think that Amelia now isn't even enough anymore. So yeah, Tasia
Yeah.
taking the game already, not even letting this game go to tiebreaker. So GG's to both these players. And yeah,
Yeah, I'm glad I
we
got to
might
see
see
it.
a Tasia mirror on final table. So if the that last Tasia beat that Sigismar. And
Mhm.
this round felt quite long, so we might instantly go into round 7?
Could be. Either way, I'm glad I got to watch that one. I was glad that we were able to figure out that we had a trace in these final tables here. So we'll see what we have left here in round 6. For everyone that is watching, if you are unaware, this is the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 10. We are in the Swiss round 6. We do still have that first table available to us that we can take a look at and see how that game is turning out between the
Yeah.
Tasia versus the Sigismar, and the Tasia is actually ahead at this point with 2 Spindle Muna Bastions out on the board.
Yeah, and 2 spindles in play and having that mana advantage for now and looking to just slow play with more magic beans. So yeah, Tasia is looking quite good. Sigismar has to somehow find a way to outboost this, maybe with some charge plays, but I don't even think that's enough. Also, that Thespian going over there, so we might just see a Tasia mirror match on the finals now. I think there's not much to do, and that Tiny Jail can't even hit anything, so they're gonna remove their own spy, and that is a Mona or Tasia mirror match on final table.
I mean, they could have hit the Spindle Harvesters, but they knew they didn't have any other follow-up, right? So, we will
They
s
couldn't. They were the bastions.
well, that's right, I forgot about that, huh?
Yeah,
Man, this sucks, for them, but glad they hit their own card. Negative for, the Tasia at the end of the game there, but, they take the game. Cool to see the magic beans getting used. I really
yeah,
liked magic beans in the, limited setup when I was doing the launches for Trial by Frost just for like a one cost boost. And it's fun to see people able to utilize that in actual games. But we will see the Tasia Mirror matchup as the meta has dictated for everyone to complain about in the Discord now. So if you weren't aware, you can now we need to nerf Tasia as well. So
yeah.
not just Sigismar and Afanis, we got another hero that we got to worry about if we weren't already worried about Tasia, but either way.
These
Um,
mass anchoring uniques were also announced to be on the watch list, I think so. Yeah,
yep.
that
And
was also definitely something that's registered.
definitely on the board. We are down to a few games left here in round 6 of the Swiss. I don't know. We can take a look at any of them.
Wait, two players can face each other twice in a tournament?
Is that what happened?
Yeah, if you're looking at table 31 and round no, yeah, I think round 3 it is. No, round 4 and the last table.
Yeah, they did face each other already. That's funny.
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump into table 22. So,
Well,
and see what we got going there. And speaking of meta, it's Sigismar versus Afanis. In case you guys were missing
oh.
it, I knew you guys were missing this before. And speaking of that, why don't we Blizzard?
Oh, yeah. Don't see that too often in Farnas, but yeah, this time it's taking the game and on 10 mana. It's a good playable card. I think before it's quite difficult to set this up, but on 10 mana, if you just play one costs otherwise, it's a solid card.
And indeed, it wins the game there. Afanis taking the victory over the
Yeah,
Sigismar player with a clutch Blizzard that all Afanis players are more than likely rushing to add to their deck lists at this moment. Be sure to
I hope
take
not.
out. You guys should probably take out your common mage dancers for Blizzard. That'll likely help out your consistency a lot later on. So, advice from Blue directly. I've never have been wrong before. So
I,
you
I, I absolutely agree to that. Alpha pairs, go do that.
Immediately get rid of them, especially if it's been helpful to you in any way. Either way, let's go ahead and take a look. Table 3 is still going on. I'll just jump into
Yeah.
that, real quick. We are dead even here with another matchup because one isn't enough. I know you guys were sad about the idea of not seeing a final table with these 2, so I'm just doing this for the people,
And we see
realistically.
another Blizzard already in the Discord for Farmers. So your shout out already worked.
They retroactively added it to it, so
Yeah.
we do have some low cost stuff here left for the bottom Sigismar. They do have a monolith out. I don't know if that's going to matter too much, especially with the Aphanis having the Mage Dancer in the reserve and some spells available to them. That I feel like whatever the Aphanis wants to do at this point, they can. Potentially just trying to slow play it so they don't run into any 2 cost removal from the Sigismar.
I think even two cost removal at this point, you just off you go that Audis
Mm,
Trooper and then win the game.
yeah.
So and but that Monolith Bastion was played at this turn. That's why the Audis Recruit doesn't have a boost.
Mm,
And that's why the Sigismar Solar on mana, despite only having played a Trooper
yeah. So
onto the board.
they probably drew into that monolith, I'd have to imagine, and didn't really get anything else. So,
Probably, yeah.
especially since it doesn't look like they modded this turn since they're at 8 and the Faunus is at 9, so they drew they more than likely drew into it or they had it in hand already, and, nothing helpful here, but, a lot of stats on the board for the Faunus after a helping hand, just one more spell that they need to play. In that off you go if they so choose or whatever else. Why not just throw a Category and
A
Alchemist out there?
rare a rare alchemist in an Athanas list. That is interesting and rarely seen.
Yeah, so they'll take it. It will be a win for the Aphanis, and that will be probably the last game of the round, more than likely. I don't know.
Maybe that last match is still going,
Yeah.
but yeah, we're going into round 7.
Round 7. All right, everyone. This is it. The final round of the Swiss. If you weren't already aware of what you are watching, this is the Altered Weekly Online League. Monday, weekly number 10 of season 2. I am Blue, also known as Blue Oak TV on YouTube. Go subscribe to me right now if you are not already. Joining me today is Runefolk. He has some places where you can watch him. Go ahead and promote some stuff.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitch on I'm Runefolk, and also at the same time, I want to shout out Pandy Andy's channel. You can find me there as well on Thursdays. We're doing our AQZ Championship series there, and we're usually around 3 to 4 people just casting our events and just analyzing it a bit as well.
Yeah, he has to shout out the AQZ event, otherwise Pandy will come to his house and in fact break his legs. So glad I was able to get that in for you.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Yeah.
we are going into the final round here, the final table, and as we wait for the game art to load, it will be a Tasia mirror matchup. Thoughts going into this final matchup? Who do you think will take it? What do you think it'll come down to, especially with the mirror matchup?
I think whoever gets their mass anchoring uniques first is winning, and if the Tasia that only plays 2 mass anchoring uniques draws their third unique, and that's facing a mass anchoring unique, the Tasia might get a bit sad. But other than that, I think the mass anchoring uniques from this Neko are better, since that caregiver. Yeah, I don't know what to say about that. That is just looking way too good, and yeah, just having one more mass anchoring unique. That last card for the other Muna is a Mighty Simbi that is drawing cards and boosting characters.
Yeah.
So also decent.
Not too bad. Looks like we're starting off here early with a common sneezer shroom that will go ahead and get that Tasia boost. I'm not sure who has more removal. Do you have their lists at all, Runefolk?
Yeah, there are 2 mana reapings for this Neko, and 2 mana reapings, and 1 Lost in the Woods for ammo.
Okay.
And same turn for both players on day 1. That is quite funny.
Yeah. Also interesting that they're just opting for the one for one opposed to contesting. Um, Maybe meaning that they don't have another one cost that they want to play, so they don't want to give
U
them the option. So we'll see.
usually players don't try to stall out the game on purpose, and they're usually trading. I, for myself, would always just play it same side because stalling is my game plan. But yeah, other players usually are not on that game plan. So unfortunately, we're seeing a one for one and not a zero for zero. That is just way cooler.
Yeah, this is honestly bad play. Like, always stall when you can, right? But,
Yeah, definitely.
what can you do? But we do have both of those out. Both players go for the one for one. We will see some mana being given, and we'll have to see who can come out here quickly with some potential uniques or with other cards. In the meantime, we're just gonna start off with an Ogun that's gonna boost up the spindle harvest, not the spindle, the sneezer shroom rather, and instead for the top Tasia, they're gonna go ahead and play that rare aloe vera, which is not a bad day 2 play.
Yeah, it's this day two play is, even if there's now a 2 for 0 coming out for ammo, I would probably prefer that the spot of this Neko, since just getting that aloe out is feels so nice. And yeah, actually ammo is getting that 2 for 0. And yeah, if I'd say as soon as there's one unique in play for this Neko, this is looking pretty good already, having that aloe and not having any anchored characters for a Asia going into a turn is always a bit rough, since you're playing into something that's already there, and you yeah, it's just you're not favored in that position. But yes, definitely being 2 up, you can still convert that into a win. And interestingly enough, not keeping that Ogun around, instead keeping that Thespian. So potentially not being able to boost up a spindle harvesters that might be drawn here.
Yeah, especially the idea of mentioning, like, them not getting anything anchored there and having to lose a card from reserve, technically going down a little bit there, and then we will see that resupply coming from the top Tasia. Um, just giving them more opportunities if they haven't already to run into some mass anchoring uniques and potentially start running away with this game if they can. But in the meantime, we do have the bottom Tasia with the lead on the tumult. And we'll have to see if that is enough for them to potentially take the game, or if we'll see the top Tasia with the, I guess, card advantage be able to ramp things up a little bit. But should be as interesting as a Muna mirror matchup can get. I'll try not to fall asleep. But
Mhm.
in the meantime, we'll go ahead and see a floral tint because why not resupply some more?
Yeah, looking for these uniques, just cycling your deck. Yeah, it's good, it's solid. And now trying to look for probably playing either that Sneaser Shroom alongside the Thespian, or just playing the Dracana. But I think I prefer Sneaser Shroom plus Thespian a bit more.
Yeah, you lose one less card, especially once that aloe vera goes to the reserve. But
Yeah.
they could have something else that they have in mind. But that seems like the ideal play at the moment. We'll see how the bottom Tasia is able to respond on ammo. And they're going to go ahead and start off with a seizure shroom. Why not?
Yeah, so still no aloe for ammo, and also no harvester, so that is still favoring the snake in my opinion a bit. But maybe hopefully they can draw into that in a few turns,
Mhm.
so they can get that resupply chain or engine also going. So yeah.
Indeed. So we will just see the magic beans that we were talking about before pop up, give up that additional boost to the sneezer shroom to get them up a little bit. And this means that we'll more than likely see the thespian come out on the same side. and we could also see a response from a Thespian from ammo as well from hand if they so choose. But not quite sure if that will be the case. Only one card left.
Thespian's currently sadly not doing anything for ammo,
Yeah.
not advancing or blocking either side. So yeah, just see the pass, and I
Yeah.
agree with that.
Yeah. Not trying to use any of their cards. Like you mentioned, they will not get the boost due to the second boost not showing up. And yeah, an equal 2-0 advance here, this time for the top Tasia on Nico. Um, and with that, they will also still have the hand advantage too. So not looking ideal for ammo at the moment, but anything can change with the simple draw of a unique if it
Yeah,
so works for them. But we'll have to see if that is the scenario. Freeloader just had a 2-minute game.
that is interesting. They were he was on Arjun, and I think he's not running. I would have loved to take a look at Freeloader's game, since he's running a very spicy list. There are probably some Scrooges in his list, and that would have been very cool to see on stream. But yeah, sadly didn't know the list he was running. Otherwise, I would have definitely shouted that one out.
Yeah, 2-minute game. Why did it take you so long, Freeloader? Just get 1-minute games in there. But either way, we will see that Thespian immediately come out for the bottom Tasia. Nice casual 2 cost 5/5/5 in stats, as is tradition. Um, and we'll have to see what the top Tasia has on board. Have to imagine if they can get that aloe vera out with the anchored, they'll take it. But maybe worried as far as like some removal being played. And oh, you were chatting a little bit on the last turn. Otherwise, it would have been a minute. Oh well, meh.
Yeah, are you on festival, and that's you just got a turn 3 festival win, or why was it so fast?
We do see the first unique come out of the top Tasia here of that Isin Boshi that we've seen previously. When a character you control gains one or more boosts, up to one target character with hand cost 3 or less, other than me, gains anchored. So, per Runefolk's declaration, this means that Nico will win the game, correct?
Yeah,
All right. It's guaranteed
that is true.
Nico
Yeah,
wins.
yeah,
So I can go ahead and stop
I
this,
agree.
right? I can back out. We can watch other
If
games
you
out.
feel free, yeah, sure.
Um, we'll go ahead and watch it just in case something crazy happens. But either way, the thumbnail should be fun now. We'll have a double Tasia on the thumbnail that I'll create after this. But we'll go ahead and see what else happens here. They're gonna go ahead and use that aloe vera now that they feel more confident about not getting removed. And despite having that unique out, they're still going to get 2-0'd by another Lyra Thespian that pops out. Bottom Tasia has to use all the resources in order to do it, but maybe that's all they need. Who knows? Maybe the mass anchoring is not going to be enough. Usually is, but maybe not this time.
Hmm. Yeah, also the Taja now again, the bottom Taja again has no anchors going into to this turn, but the one expedition now is also uncontested by this top Taja, so there might be potential. And interestingly enough, I think there was a line where you could have expected as top Taja that even though you're playing your aloe into that hero companion expedition, you could have been double advanced on, and therefore it might have been a bit more consistent playing your aloe onto that other expedition. But yeah, it's a bit hard to contest, and I definitely don't mind just trying to go for the 1 for 1 or 1 for 2. And yeah, it was punished by that thespian, but definitely it's oftentimes just enough to get that 2 for 1, maybe even.
Yeah, and even giving up that 2-0, as we've shown early on in the game, it may not even be that big of a deal, especially with the card advantage that they have at this point and board advantage. Um, Currently, no plants even for the bottom Tasia to work with for that Ogun to be beneficial for. No other resources other than the card in hand and in reserve. And at this point, the Top Tasia, despite being behind on the tumult, like you mentioned, is still looking fairly good, especially running into something like a Spindle Moon Bastion if they were ever worried about, getting targeted by a Mana Reaping or something along those lines. But yeah, Keylon Guy, that's definitely a thing. I feel like that's a common thing in a lot of games where they're like, one bad thing happens and, I'm done. Just get me out of here. I don't care. But, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll start off with a measly one cost floral tint to do some resupplying, and we'll have the young Sovereign Weaver in the reserve at the moment. That will get some boosts if they so choose to play it. But I have to imagine we're more than likely going to be seeing some mass anchoring if possible.
Oh, and we do finally see an alloy here come out for ammo, and alongside it probably a Naogun, but this might still not be. Well, actually, it goes up to 666 instead, and actually Isonboshi plus Yongsu would be 7 stats in Forest, so but we do
Ooh,
see that Muna Caregiver already, and
yeah.
this is going to anchor quite a few things. And I think this is also together with that Yongsu enough to block out since that Yongsu now should go to this should put the expeditions to 7, so it's still winning actually for the Snako, and yeah, looking super good.
Yeah, and we do see that second unique pop up. So
Oh yeah.
it's one of those things now, despite being behind, it's looking awfully good here for the top Tasia on, Nico, and it will be quite the uphill battle for the bottom Tasia on ammo to try to keep things together. We will see the fleeting unique be anchored, and that Muna caregiver will just be able to be played from reserve because, as everyone knows, Muna is not going to be playing Axiom Scrambler anytime soon, and we're more than likely seeing this top Tasia run away with it, as Runefolk has called first unique, first win,
Yeah.
and we will see Nico potentially take the victory here in this
And
week 10 tournament.
and this would be the second tournament win already for Nico, since they won on the first season of AWOL on the third event or third week.
Yeah, we do see a mighty Simbi unique coming out of the bottom Tasia. Looks quite pretty at the very least. I don't
Yeah.
know if it's going to do too much past that other than look pretty, but sometimes that's all you need to do in life is look pretty. But
It's
either
still a
way,
lot of boosts, and that might be enough to double advance you, but yeah, currently actually it's not looking too
mhm,
good.
yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, still a lot of stats up for the top Tasia as well, and a lot of opportunities to anchor some things. So even if the bottom Tasia is able to get a one for one out of this, the next turn, as was the case for the last game we watched, this Tasia get a lot of uniques out, um, will not look ideal, and we will see a lot of anchoring happening here, and a thespian will be thrown out to be able to give a good amount of boosts for the bottom Tasia, but still 4 mana left here for the top Tasia. So we may just be looking at a 2-0 to end this game here in the final round of the Swiss.
Yeah, and probably a Beauty Sleep would be enough, but yeah, a lot of other characters could maybe take this as well, since there would only need to be 3 monsters. But yeah, that Mana Reaping is taking out that Hydrocana probably, so that should be the game.
Yep. That'll be it for everybody. We will be watching some other games, but we do get to see a Tasia victory here in week 10 with the 2-0, getting some uniques available to them. Congratulations to this Nico for taking that victory almost at the 500 ELO mark. Not quite there yet. You'll have to start playing some Sigismar or Faunus to get there. Either way, let's go ahead and go back to the pools and the tables or whatever we wanna call them, and try to catch some other games before we wrap things up. Um, anything you wanna take a look at that, we haven't had a chance to watch before I go randomly again?
that we haven't had the chance to look at. I was just already going to table 3 and hoping that no runes on the 0. But for new things, you can pick a random number or random table
I'm fine with table
that would
3,
be fine.
you're already there. Let's see if
Okay.
Nero can take the victory. They are ahead currently against the Sigismar. They may get that 1 loss on the Basira to go to a nice 6-1, which would be quite impressive, especially with all
Yeah.
those cards in hand, which means they've definitely probably got to use at least 1 of their Ozmas, and yes, there is 1 in the reserve, as well as 2 Haven Serengars. So they've been doing plenty of drawing at this point. Um,
Yeah.
We'll see if that, works out for them, and, hey, you know what? An
Mm.
Occlute, first turn play is gonna feel quite good. So,
Yeah, definitely when your opponent is on 3 cards only, that is definitely very good. If you're not winning this turn, you're probably still able to stall and, yeah, just starving your opponent out of resources this turn if you're not winning it is definitely also very good going forward.
and we will have a Sabotage come out just for fun. For the Sigismar player, but, I'm not gonna do anything to get rid of that Occlute yet. They can get 2 more characters out and maybe get a teamwork training, but that would require something like a Cadets or an Overseer, but that also is under the presumption that Nero's not gonna play anything else that has stats, and what do you know, there's something with stats.
Yeah, and this time around, Neuro might be a bit more prepared for a unique or a Sandman or for a sleeping unique or a Sandman, since this is looking a lot better as a setup into potential sleep.
Yep,
And
and
yeah,
sure
there actually
enough.
is that Sandman already. And now with 5 mana and 3 cards, there should be still enough for Neuro to fight through that Sandman. But of course, it's for the moment quite threatening.
Yeah. They will go ahead and activate that cylinder to give a boost, and still 2 mana left for the Sigismar, though, so they could definitely get some removal going here, and with that boost, they're gonna go ahead and give it to the Blade Dancer, and it'll be a 2/2/2 just to block, and sure enough, we do have a removal, and it will hit the Blade Dancer, but, with that, that should be enough for them to just go ahead and play it again if they want to.
Yeah. Exactly, and that physical training is also taking the game. So yeah, Neuro is able to take that 6 wins on Basira in this week, and that's super cool to see.
Yeah, quite impressive from Neuro. Glad they were able to take this victory and get a. I mean, it should be a top 8 placing at this point with Basira, which we
Mhm.
don't get to see very often.
Yeah, that is super cool. Yeah,
And we'll switch back here to see if we have any other games that we can watch before we close things out. And we sure do. So let's see what we got going here. Um, Tiebreaker, table 18. See if I can jump into it in time.
sure.
Tiebreaker, it is Kojo versus Finn. We get to see a cloth cocoon hit something. 2 uniques on the board for Kojo. Why not
Three
a third?
uniques.
It's a tooth fairy that has a lot of effects from reserve, but only one from hand that lets you draw, which isn't bad, but doesn't look like they have enough stats to do anything else. And Finn will take the game. Glad we were able to do a speed commentary there. Thanks for the help.
Yeah, no problem.
Back we go. In case anyone was wondering, we are currently in the round 7 of the Swiss of the AWOL Season 2 Monday Weekly number 10. We have watched the final table with this Nico taking this week's tournament. We're just watching a few more games here before the end of the tournament, and it looks like there's only one left in table 9. So let's go ahead and take a look at it real quick and maybe watch this last game. It's a Sigismar versus a Sierra. Sierra does have 2 permanents out, one of them being the Hive, and is currently behind and will have to deal with that, but they can still play that mechanical training and have another card in hand.
Yeah, and also being ahead in mana, so that's quite good for them. And It definitely now comes down to that last card for the Sierra in hand and the last card that's the Sigismund's able to play, and
Mhm.
yeah, uh, it can definitely go either way.
And with that tiny jail, that's pretty much it, right? Like there's nothing that they can do because assuming Sierra has something here. Oh, they don't have a character. No.
But
One
they
cost.
still get to tap
Yeah,
their hero, so,
yeah. So they
that's
still get
still
the
the game,
thing.
and
GG's.
we do get to see a Foundry. That is super cool.
The clutch foundry usage, not for the actual use of the card effect, but just for the brass bug, as
Yeah,
is what you need for Sierra. So all Sierras out there, start adding foundry to your deck list as well. Probably take out your Nilum trees. You don't need those.
maybe that card is actually just in there, so you get additional brass bug counters as brass bug triggers as soon as you have your hive out, and
Mm,
you just draw off of the on play ability
yeah,
and get
could
some
be.
card advantage that way.
It's not bad. Not it could be not necessarily ideal, but it's not bad, right? But that
Yeah,
will be the last game, and we will have the placements to take a look at here. I'll go ahead and switch over the screen so you guys can see what we have here for tournament results. There and go yeah, and that. Yeah, like I mentioned, we got to commentate over this Nico on the Tasia pulling out the first unique over the mirror matchup and taking the victory over ammo. Any thoughts on that finals matchup? It's exactly what you called, so I guess you don't
yeah,
really need to commentate anything other than that, right?
yeah. I think everything was said. These anchoring uniques just super good.
Yeah, I think we should only target those and maybe like some Ysmir heroes particular, but other than that, I don't think anything else needs to be targeted at all. Let's go ahead and go down the list here as far as some other results. As I mentioned, Ammo BB Ammo taking second place. Also on the Tasia, we have Altered Aces Epsilon, three Altered Aces in a row with Epsilon, Neuro, and Popeye. Neuro notably on the Basira, so congrats to them. Um, we also have Hurricane CCG on sixth place, Leaf Fay seventh place, Coco Chu, I imagine, in eighth, and we did see Tim Pepid, I can't say it correctly, in ninth place, Clay in 10th, DSL Woltis in 11th, Wesh in 12th, Gabish in 13th, Takagi in 14th, Mujis in 15th, and Circus in 16th. Any big surprises to you for this tournament, Runefolk?
Big surprises, maybe that there was a Muna mirror match in the finals. We don't get to see that too often in the finals. There are occasionally some some tables that get to final tables and also win those. But seeing two of them in the same tournament is I think not seen too often. But yeah, other than that, well, it was cool to see some traced or one trace that performed quite well.
Yep.
But yeah, other than that, I don't think too many surprises.
Yeah, no, I was happy. I agree with you with that. I think my big surprises were definitely seeing some Trace do well, and then also Nero doing well on the Basira was quite cool. So special shout out to the Trace and Basira players there for getting some cool deck lists together and performing. And yeah, other than that, shout out to it's Nico for having some awesome uniques, or this Nico, yeah, and,
Yeah,
getting some anchoring going here for Muna, but other than that, that's about all I had. Again, I am Blue, you can see my social medias and stuff below me. Mostly just check me out on YouTube, that would be awesome, and go ahead and subscribe, and joining me today has been Runefolk, who's gonna talk about himself and more than likely AQZ, so Pandy doesn't get upset at him real quick.
yeah. Yeah, you can find me on Twitch on I'm Runefolk, and also on Thursdays we're doing our AQZ championships. If you want to play some tournaments, sign up for that. We're always happy to see players join in, and we're also casting that on Thursdays. So yeah, that's always cool to be part of.
Indeed. Once again, want to thank everyone that joined us on the stream. Was a fun stream to get to commentate. Got to see some fun matches. Got to see some timeouts. Got to see a lot of different things as far as Altered is concerned. Past that, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. Hope you enjoy the rest of your evening if you are in Europe, which you probably are, or afternoon if you're me, and I'm going to go grab some lunch. Past that, I'll talk to everyone later and bye.
Bye bye.